Chapter 398. The overall commander of the Carey fleet was outside Keen prison. He relayed the information of the current situation to Luo Nan, who was on planet Kree. Luo Nan replied coldly without losing his domineering aura, "Push the spaceship forward. Force the new star core to hand over the universal orb. Otherwise, they will welcome the wrath of the Kree and a war that will engulf the entire galaxy." Yes. The spaceship commander accepted the order. He had just ended the video call with Luo Nan and had yet to give the order to push forward when the Vanguard spaceship suddenly sent back a message, "Sir, our radar has detected an unidentified flying object. It's currently flying towards us at high speed." The commander spoke coldly, "Do I need to give the order for it to dare approach our Carey spaceship? Push forward and open fire. Blast that flying object into space dust." Understood. The engines of over 100 pitch-black and ice-cold spaceships rumbled as they ignited. This army was large enough to flatten a planet's civilization. They pushed forward in a dark mass. The Vanguard spaceship at the very front had countless cannons lined up in a row. They fired interstellar missiles the size of fighter jets. There was an extremely dazzling speck of stars on the other side of the target. It was flying close to the speed of light towards the spaceship. It was Kale himself. This was his first time flying at light speed in outer space. He only felt his mind stir, and the star belts and planets on both sides of his body blurred and retreated behind him at high speed. Kale, surrounded by dazzling light, looked forward. His enhanced eyesight could extend to thousands of kilometers away. He could clearly see the incoming interstellar missiles and the fleet of spaceships behind them. "I'll use you guys to test my skills first." Kale held his breath and circulated his merged energy to its peak. His palm was covered in a dazzling radiance. He didn't dodge the incoming interstellar missiles. Rumble, rumble. A series of unprecedented explosions suddenly erupted in the pitch-black outer space, covering an area of several hundred kilometers. The flames ignited a small corner of the Milky Way universe. This is the result of provoking the Kree. The commander stood in the command room of the giant spaceship. He sneered as he admired the spectacular explosion through the transparent floor-to-ceiling window. But suddenly, a dazzling speck of starlight shot out from the explosion at extreme speed. It continued to approach the spaceship courageously. "What is that?" The commander was stunned. In the command communication channel, the scout in the Vanguard anxiously replied, "Sir, sir. The unidentified flying object is still approaching. Through detection, there are signs of life. It's a humanoid organism." "What did you say?" The commander's eyes widened in shock. A living organism flying in outer space? He even endured the indiscriminate bombardment of interstellar missiles? The commander didn't have time to think. The star that looked like a cursor had already approached the front of the fleet. It didn't show any signs of stopping. Instead, it accelerated and crashed directly into the Vanguard battleship. Boom! When the fusion energy touched the battleship slightly, the steel deck was instantly penetrated and melted. The stream of light entered the front cockpit of the battleship, pierced through layers of steel plates, and finally rushed out from the engine at the back of the battleship. Guard Carey's horrified voice sounded from inside the battleship. Before he could see the enemy's face clearly, the battleship exploded into a raging fireball after a violent tremor. Countless parts and alien corpses flew out. Kale stopped above the battleships and looked down coldly. His eyes seemed to have passed through countless battleships and landed on the commander on the extra-large spaceship. Seeing this, the commander couldn't help but roar, "Damn it, return fire. Blast him into smithereens." Hundreds of interstellar battleships immediately locked onto Kale and raised their cannons. This scene was like a high-pressure cannon killing a mosquito. It was so strange and spectacular that it was shocking. Just in time. Kale smiled coldly. He lowered his body and flew down. He raised his hand and fired a fusion energy hand cannon. A burning beam of light swept across space. An interstellar missile exploded right after it left the cannon, causing a few battleships around it to be heavily damaged and sink. Kale seemed to be dissatisfied with this efficiency. He sped up and used both his hands to block an interstellar missile that was flying towards him. He blocked it with his bare hands and pushed the interstellar missile towards the fleet of interstellar battleships. Countless battleship pilots steered their spaceships away in shock. For a moment, it was like a tiger had entered a flock of sheep. Kale was the only wolf, and the interstellar battleships were one-sided sheep. In the following time, Kale completely demonstrated the superhuman power of fusion energy. He flew at the speed of light and ignored the energy shield of the interstellar missile bombardment. This allowed him to be fearless of the huge fleet of interstellar battleships. The amazing power of fusion energy allowed him to deal a catastrophic fatal blow to the interstellar battleships and spaceships. On this day, the aliens in Keen Prison and New Star could see the endless fireworks in the sky when they looked up. It was as if a salute was being set off in the sky. Few people knew that every firework lit up represented the explosion and destruction of an interstellar battleship. Demon, he is a star demon. The Kree battleship channel, from the beginning of Kale's attack, had been filled with cries for help and screams. The commander on the rear spaceship looked at the wreckage and corpses of the battleships in front of him. His body began to tremble, and finally, he couldn't help but give the order to retreat. The Kree battleships wanted to retreat, but it didn't mean that Kale would let it go. After dismantling a battleship with fusion energy, Kale looked up and saw that most of the surviving battleships began to retreat at high speed. He narrowed his eyes and locked onto the large interstellar battleship among them. Trying to run? Kale smiled and suddenly accelerated, turning into a stream of light. He ignored the ordinary spaceships and approached the interstellar spaceship that seemed to be the command center. Beep beep beep, warning, warning, enemy target is approaching. The commander's expression changed when he heard the warning from the starship's defense system. He turned to look out the window and saw a ray of light hit the outer shell of the starship. Buzz, the interstellar spaceship trembled slightly. This time, Kale's attack did not penetrate the outer shell of the spaceship. Instead, it was blocked by a thick layer of energy shield. The fusion energy and the spaceship's energy were canceling each other out. I want to see how many times you can block. Kale clenched his fists, and the fusion energy wrapped around his fists. He then punched out continuously, turning into beams of light that bombarded the energy shield. The interstellar spaceship that was 1,000,000 times bigger than him shook violently. The interstellar spaceship's energy shield was dimming at a speed visible to the naked eye, and it looked like it was about to completely disintegrate. Commander, what should we do? On the starship, a group of Kree guards anxiously waited for the commander's reply. What else can we do? Run if you can. The commander smiled sadly. He stood alone in the command center. For the last time, he trembled as he contacted Luo Nan, the man he swore loyalty to. The call connected, and Luo Nan directly asked on the screen, "How is it? Have you obtained the Universal Spirit Orb?" "No. We failed." The commander shook his head and looked straight at Luo Nan. "Run quickly. It'll be too late if we wait any longer." Chapter 399. Bang! The dazzling punch that carried the fusion energy and the force of 10,000 kilograms caused the energy shield of the spaceship in front of Kyle to dim and disintegrate like fireworks. The 5-meter-thick interstellar steel plate below also rumbled and collapsed inch by inch, revealing only the hole that led to the command room inside the spaceship. Hula, all the oxygen in the command room was sucked away by outer space. Many of the alien guards were dragged out of the command room, screaming in pain. Exposed to the harsh environment of outer space, the alien guards' bodies immediately froze. Their outer appearance was frozen into white frost, becoming space garbage that floated forever. Kale slowed down his flying speed and flew in lightly. He stepped on the deck of the spaceship and waved his hand. The fusion energy beam melted the steel plate and sealed the hole that he created. Kale looked forward. There was only one person left in the command room. He was wearing the uniform of Carrie. His skin was dark blue, and his face was painted like an Indian. You should be the commander, right? Kale retracted his fusion energy and sized up the other party. The commander also stared at him closely. Commander Carey didn't expect that the one who forced hundreds of invincible spaceships to retreat was actually a human being. The commander changed his previous domineering attitude and asked humbly, "Your Excellency, how should I address you?" Kale said straightforwardly, "My name is Kale. I'm a human from Earth." Human. Commander Carey was stunned for a moment. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. He laughed until tears were about to fall from his eyes. The Carey interstellar spaceship that shook the Milky Way alliance actually lost to a barbaric human today. You're surprised, aren't you? There are a few others like me. Kale smiled faintly. He walked forward slowly and took out a creature card. Commander Carey laughed and said, "Don't think that you've won just because you killed me. We, the Kree race, have survived dozens of interstellar battles in history. We're still the dominant force today. Your Earth, on the other hand, has only just risen. It's just a spark of civilization that can be extinguished at any time. So what? Kneel down." The corners of Kale's mouth curled up as he pressed down with his palm. The tenfold force field forced the other party to kneel on the ground. Commander Carey roared, "Just kill me. We, the Kree people, will never yield. There will come a day when the great and respected Luo Nan will avenge us." Luo Nan? Kale smiled. Just as he was about to make his move, Vice suddenly sent him a message. "Boss, there's a voice transmission going on here. Someone might be eavesdropping on our conversation." The commander's expression changed slightly. At the same time, a hoarse and deep voice sounded from the communication station. "Kale, right? I think we need to have a good talk." "Luo Nan, don't worry. I'll go talk to you personally." Kale raised his hand and blasted out a dazzling beam of light, shattering the entire communication station into dust, leaving only a pitch-black hole where it once stood. Venom. Looking down at Commander Carey in front of him, Kale materialized the bio card in his hand. The moment Venom entered his body, a black tentacle immediately lashed out and pierced into the commander's temple. It went straight to the memory tissue of his brain. A few seconds later, the commander finished providing the last bit of useful information. His brain shut down and he fell straight to the ground. Venom finished organizing the information and spoke in Kale's mind, "Boss, we've obtained the forces of the Nemesis Empire and the location of the target, Luo Nan." After Kale finished listening to the information, he turned Venom into a card and continued to circulate the fusion energy. Rings of dazzling light rose and lingered around his body. Kale's legs kicked off and he turned into a beam of light that pierced through the outer shell of the interstellar spaceship. He no longer paid attention to the fleeing interstellar spaceships and shot towards the Carey Empire's planet at the fastest speed possible. He turned into a faint star and disappeared in the blink of an eye. At this very moment, in the center of the Carey Empire, there was an enormous dark ancient palace. Blue flame torches were lit on the walls of the palace. The ruler of the empire, Luo Nan, sat on the throne wearing a hooded cloak and holding a starhammer scepter. They failed. How is this possible? Earth. Humans. It can't be related to that woman, right? Luo Nan's face was as heavy as water. Even though he heard the worst news, he was still calm and composed, worthy of the title of ruler. They've come to find me? Then come. I, Luo Nan, have never been afraid of anyone. Luo Nan seemed to know that even if he called for his subordinates, they wouldn't be of any use. So he didn't dispatch any troops to protect him. He also didn't have the slightest intention of escaping. He just sat on the throne like this, tightly gripping the starhammer scepter. He quietly waited for the minutes and seconds to pass. After an unknown amount of time, the 10-meter-tall palace doors suddenly opened from the outside. A whistling wind rushed in, causing the blue flames of the torches on the walls to violently flicker. Luo Nan raised his eyes to look. Following the sound of footsteps, there was a human figure constantly approaching. The blue flames only illuminated the intruder's face when the intruder approached the palace hall. Silver-haired, gold-shattering pupils. A robust human male. It was none other than Kale, who had arrived at the speed of light. "Intruder, state your name." Luo Nan snorted coldly. The star hammer struck the floor, causing the entire palace hall to tremble. Kale smiled and said, "Don't you already know?" "Luo Nan, due to certain reasons, I can only eliminate you first." "Is it because of the universal spirit orb?" Luo Nan's eyes were cold and gloomy. He stared straight at Kale as he slowly rose from his seat. His body was considered tall among the Cree people, but he was already over 2 meters tall. His body carried the might of a primordial beast. "There's a reason. The universal spirit orb is on my body. You want it? Beg me. Perhaps I'll consider letting you take a look." Kale taunted wildly. "You've seen the king of the Cree Empire, and you've even barged into the Palace of Power. Why don't you hurry up and kneel in salute? Perhaps if you do, I'll consider leaving your corpse intact." Luo Nan sneered over and over. He grabbed the Starhammer scepter with both hands and shouted, "As for the universal spirit orb, I'll go get it myself." Luo Nan leaped high into the air as soon as he finished speaking. He was in the air, and the stored Starhammer was raised high above his head. When he reached the highest point, his body fell, and the Starhammer rapidly smashed down at Kale's head. Clang! It was as if he had struck a star. Luo Nan's pupils contracted violently. He didn't see Kale make any movements, but the Starhammer's head was firmly blocked by his opponent's left hand. A gale rushed outwards in the chaotic air, causing Luo Nan's silver hair to become somewhat disheveled. "The king of the Cree Empire, a warrior race. Is this all you've got?" Kale looked at Luo Nan with a smile that wasn't a smile. Luo Nan's gaze sharpened, and the temperature of the air in the palace hall suddenly dropped. The Starhammer scepter emitted an extremely cold air, freezing Kyle's left hand and even his body into a block of ice in an instant. The frost spread down to the floor of the hall, spreading outwards. The blue flames of the torches were extinguished and dimmed. Chapter 400. Wind and frost whistled, and an extremely cold white air pervaded every corner of the sealed palace hall. Even the surrounding walls were frozen into ice. Kale, who was in the center of the hall, had completely transformed into a human ice sculpture. He was frozen within the light blue solid ice, not moving at all. It was as if his life force had been severed, and he was in a state of suspended animation. "I want to use your head and blood as a sacrifice to the dead Cree. I want to appease their souls." Luo Nan's dark blue face revealed a murderous and tyrannical expression. He raised the star hammer, which emitted cold air, high up into the air and aimed it at the head of Kale's ice sculpture. But before he could swing the hammer, the ice sculpture suddenly trembled slightly. You haven't entered suspended animation yet?" Luo Nan's eyes widened in shock. Kale, who was frozen within the solid ice, suddenly turned his pair of gold-shattering pupils. He stared straight at Luo Nan, and the corner of his mouth curled up in a strange arc. "Not good." Luo Nan's heart grew anxious. He couldn't care about anything else. He swung the star hammer down with both hands, and the high-tech warhammer hummed at the same time. It emitted rings of vibrational waves, amplifying the surface of the hammer. Even a steel building would collapse on the spot from this hammer strike. Just as the star hammer was about to smash into Kale's head, the solid ice suddenly cracked from the inside out. Shockingly, a scorching golden tide of flames gushed out from the countless cracks in the solid ice. Bang! The palace hall was completely filled with steam. A moment ago, it was a frozen domain that was below 100 degrees Celsius. In the next instant, it had turned into a melting zone that was over 1,000 degrees Celsius. A dual heaven of ice and fire. The ice and frost melted into water at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then the steam turned into nothingness, and the figures of two people gradually appeared within the dissipating steam. The star hammer was blocked by Kale, who was wrapped in flames. The vibrational waves passed through his body and smashed into the palace door 20 meters away. The door trembled, and several enormous cracks bloomed on it. Not a bad weapon. Kale felt his blood and energy churn as he withstood the vibrational waves head-on. He calmly looked at Luo Nan. Rings of golden flames rose from his small feet and wrapped around his entire body. Even his silver hair spontaneously combusted and burned fiercely. Kale had completely transformed into a man of fire. This power belongs to the Asgardian race. You are not an ordinary human from Earth. Luo Nan exploded with a furious roar. He held on to the authority in a death grip and used all his strength to press the star hammer down. However, he was pushed back by Kale, who took a step forward. He plowed 2 deep marks in the ground. The flame of several thousand degrees Celsius tempered the star hammer. Naturally, the star hammer made of special materials would not fuse, but the heat wave crushed the previous cold air. The high temperature was transmitted all the way to the handle of the scepter. Sizzle, black smoke emitted from Luo Nan's hand as he gripped the star hammer scepter. He resisted the high temperature with great difficulty, unwilling to let go of his weapon. Kyle held the star hammer and pushed Luo Nan a few meters away just like this. I really am a human. However, I am a human who has transcended the god race. Kale chuckled. He twisted his wrist, and a pillar of flame suddenly erupted from his left hand that was holding the star hammer, sending Luo Nan and his hammer flying. Pa! Luo Nan's body smashed fiercely onto Carrie's throne. The supreme stone chair, which had a certain sense of age, shattered into pieces. Luo Nan's burned hand was still holding onto the star hammer scepter. He struggled to prop up his body from a pile of rubble. He spat out a large mouthful of blood with a wah sound. Is this the end? Kale's body was burning with golden divine flames. He calmly looked at the extraterrestrial emperor, who was vomiting blood on the ground in an extremely sorry state. Luo Nan might seem weak, but in reality, his body's strength and strength were second only to the Asgardian god race. The cold air had faintly reached the level of the ice giant divine equipment. The shock wave from the star hammer in his hand could shatter a space warship. It was a pity that he met Kale, who possessed the power of the god race and had completely awakened his fire-type godly power. Luo Nan was used to killing the weak, but he suddenly suffered a heavy blow from a true powerhouse. Congratulations. You forced me to this point. Luo Nan climbed up from the ground. There were still traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. He grinned coldly. Do you know where this place is? Isn't it your palace, the meeting hall, the place where you sacrifice the enemy's head? Kale shrugged indifferently. Oh. Right, starting tomorrow, this place will become your exclusive grave. Luo Nan straightened his body and slammed the star hammer scepter heavily against the floor. He spoke in a cold voice. This place used to be the Carrie Empire, the place where the supreme intelligence existed. However, I killed her with my own hands over a dozen years ago, completely grasping the Carrie Empire in my hands. Supreme intelligence? Kale's heart skipped a beat. A controller like Luo Nan could not be considered a high-dimensional life form at the top of the universe. In the Marvel dimension, there were some high-dimensional life forms who had reached the peak of evolution. They were powerful and difficult to deal with. From what he knew, Grandmaster was one, Domum was another, God King Odin was another, Star-Lord's father was another, Thanos was another, and there were also consciousness life forms like the Supreme Intelligence. There was also the Observer, these lifeforms who did not participate in the world. Although Kale grasped extraordinary powers, he was not confident that he could deal with or even kill a high-dimensional life form. Now that he heard Luo Nan say that he had killed the Supreme Intelligence, he could not help but feel a bit incredulous. You must really want to know the method I used to kill the Supreme Intelligence. Luo Nan seemed to have seen through Kale's intentions. He smiled coldly. Then he held the star hammer with both hands and placed it horizontally in front of his chest. He said with inexplicable confidence, "This Carry Warhammer in my hand is the Carry Empire's single-weapon artifact. It is called the Universal Weapon. It was created by the Carry Empire's highest technology. It can manipulate the energy of the universe. According to my wishes, it can decompose, recombine, and transform matter. It can also emit shock waves, absorb energy, create force fields, and so on." "So, you use this Warhammer to kill the Supreme Intelligence?" Kale suddenly became interested. He stared at the hammer in Luo Nan's hand. Every civilization had one or two single-weapon artifacts that could destroy the world. For example, Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet, Thor's Tempest Warhammer, the Flame Giant's Eternal Flame. I didn't kill her. Instead, I exiled her. Luo Nan had just finished speaking when he suddenly pushed the Carry Warhammer forward. He said in a cold voice, "Human Kale, you have committed a serious crime. In the name of the leader of the Carry Empire, I sentence you to eternal exile." The Carry Warhammer flickered with a white halo. A mysterious and powerful force descended. Its target was Kale, who was on the battlefield. Kale's heart jumped fiercely. All the hairs on his body stood on end. He had an intense sense of danger. He instinctively wanted to circulate his merged energy and escape from the hall. But he was still a beat too late. The moment the mysterious force enveloped Kale, he was pulled into the spatial rift. His entire person disappeared from the hall. Only a circle of imprints was left behind. Hyperspace, teleportation. Luo Nan looked at the circle of imprints and muttered to himself, "Kale. You can stay in the space crack, forever alone and descend into oblivion." Chapter 401. Boom! The surrounding space and time shattered and rotated. Colorful lights flashed chaotically. Kale was wrapped in a strange mysterious power. It didn't cause any substantial damage to him. It was just like the Bifrost, a one-sided forced teleportation. He was teleported from the supreme palace of planet Kree to an unknown space. Every second was incomparably long. It was like traveling through hundreds of millions of light years. After half a minute, the speed of the teleportation gradually slowed down. It didn't stop until he reached the other side of the universe. After Kale ended the long teleportation, he shook his head. His chaotic consciousness instantly returned to clarity. Kale looked around and found that he was no longer in a place he knew. He was standing on a small planet with a bumpy surface. Although it was a small planet, its overall radius was only about 100 meters. However, its gravity was shockingly strong. It was close to 20 times that of Earth. The temperature was also surprisingly low. It was already below 0 degrees Celsius, where ordinary life forms couldn't survive. Kale looked up. Above him was a dark and dead starry sky of the universe. The bright twinkling stars seemed very far away, but it gave people the illusion that it was very close. "Vice, where is this?" Kale asked. Then his voice echoed in this vast space. The smartwatch beeped. Vice, who had been online all this time, quickly said, "Master, I'm not sure. There aren't any communication signals in the nearby light years. I updated the map of the Milky Way Alliance, but there aren't any galactic coordinates of this place." I still underestimated Luo Nan. His Kree artifact actually has a teleportation ability similar to the Bifrost. Maybe we've been teleported to a remote galactic system outside the Milky Way Alliance. Kale frowned slightly. For others, this was undoubtedly a death sentence. But Kale was different. He had the card space that stored a large amount of resources. Plus, he could fly through the universe with the fused energy. Even if he was teleported to the 9 realms, he would at most spend some extra time flying back. Thinking of this, Kale operated the fused energy. Dazzling lights flowed and rose on the surface of his body. He stomped on the ground, and like a humanoid fighter jet, he ignited the asteroid where he was and flew towards a random direction at the speed of light. Kale was flying at the fastest speed in the starry sky. Light speed was the standard, and when it reached its maximum speed, it faintly showed signs of surpassing light speed. Kale asked the Vice to pay attention to the signs and signals of civilization. They flew in an exploratory manner, and it took them about half an hour. However, the longer they flew, the more Kale felt that something was wrong. Originally, he had set his sights on a spot of starlight as his target. However, even though they had flown far enough to cross the central region of the Milky Way Alliance, the distance between them and that spot of starlight was still the same as before they set off. No matter how hard they flew, they couldn't seem to reach that area in the distance. Kale was sweating profusely due to the intense consumption of the fused energy in his body. He wanted to take a break first, so he landed on an asteroid in front of him. After scanning the environment of the planet, Kale was suddenly stunned. He said, "Vice, did you notice that the asteroid we're standing on is very similar to the place where we first set off?" "It's not very similar, Master. The planet we're on now is the planet we teleported to before. The gravitational and magnetic fields are exactly the same." Vice also couldn't understand the situation at hand. After flying at the speed of light for half an hour, they ended up back at the same place? Kale touched his chin and thought of something important. He asked, "Vice, how long did I fly just now?" According to the system's calculation, it was 3 minutes. "No, it should be 30 minutes, or 3 days. 3 years? Vice's system seemed to have broken down as it answered hesitantly. "I see." Kale took a deep breath as if he had understood something. His face was unprecedentedly serious. Vice said in disbelief, "Master. What did you think of?" "I realize that my system is unable to accurately calculate the time that has passed here. Of course it's unable to calculate because this isn't our original universe. It's a dimensional dimension that doesn't have the concept of time and space." Kale sighed and casually picked up a small stone from the ground. He threw it out of the asteroid and the stone instantly disappeared without a trace. He didn't know how much time had passed, but he felt that after a while. With a whoosh, Kale grabbed the small stone that he had thrown behind him. This made his face even colder as he tried to verify his guess. There was no concept of time in this dimensional world, so even Vice couldn't calculate how much time had passed. It could be an instant, or it could be decades. There was no concept of space, so no matter where they flew or how far they flew, they would eventually return to their original place. The small stone that was thrown out would also return to its starting point. "I never thought that other than Damuma's dark dimension, there's also the mirror dimension that is exclusive to mages. There are also many unknown third dimension dimensions." Kale narrowed his eyes. If he had the ring, he might be able to use the mirror dimension as a springboard to return to his original world. But now, even he couldn't find a way to escape in such a short time. "Master, there's something approaching us." Suddenly, Vice alerted him. "Yes, I can feel it too." Kale looked sideways and saw a mercury-like liquid floating in outer space. It landed on the asteroid and flowed towards him. When it was about 5 meters away, the mercury-like liquid suddenly surged and formed a female human body. The details of the human body were gradually revealed, and it quickly transformed into a beautiful blonde girl. The girl was wearing an old white nurse uniform. Her sapphire-like eyes were very big, and her long eyelashes were slightly trembling. Her pure and flawless smile was even more beautiful than an angel's. Kale looked at the person in front of him and his body trembled. He blurted out, "Lucy? Why are you here?" The blonde girl maintained her sweet smile and gently said to Kale, I didn't think that there would be other creatures that would enter here. You're not Lucy. Who are you? Why did you transform into Lucy? Kale's joy dissipated. He coldly stared at the other party. The dazzling light on his body was crazily flowing along with his killing intent. Me? You can call me Supreme Wisdom. The blonde girl smiled and looked down at her appearance. She slowly said to Kale, listen, I don't have any hostility. I'm just a body of consciousness. I don't have an external appearance. My incarnation is only created based on the person that others miss. This kind of conversation should be pleasing to your eyes. No, I don't want you to become like her. Kale flipped his hand and a dazzling light shattered the blonde girl on the spot. The Supreme Wisdom's body of consciousness was shattered, but it quickly reformed. This time, it transformed into the appearance of the new beauty. She helplessly spread her hands and said, this should be fine, right? Chapter 402. That's more like it. Kale looked at the Supreme Intellect in front of him, who had transformed into a new beauty. He did not choose to attack again. His eyebrows twitched as he stared at the Supreme Intellect and said in surprise, wait, I seem to have seen her before. You should be talking about the new leader of the new civilization, right? The Supreme Intellect was not surprised at all. She touched the white skin on her face and twirled the silver bangs on her earlobe. She smiled and said, she is a very bold and courageous woman. She is an enemy worthy of respect. In the past, I often used her appearance to show off to others. Is that so? The new leader I have seen was more than a dozen years older than your current appearance. Kale was expressionless as he mocked coldly. The Supreme Intellect's face stiffened slightly. She was silent for a moment before she said bitterly, so that's how it is. More than a dozen years have passed in the outside world? I understand now. Kale understood and said, you are the former leader of the Kree civilization, the Supreme Intellect who was rumored to have been killed by Luo Nan. Luo Nan, Luo Nan. The Supreme Intellect heard this name as if she had been provoked. Her face instantly became extremely ugly. She clenched her soft fists and gritted her teeth without caring about her appearance, that bastard. As a criminal of the Kree Empire, he actually dared to form a faction to rebel against the official. He even used the Kree artifact to teleport me to this damned place. Kyle shrugged and added, obviously, he succeeded after he claimed to have killed you. After claiming that he had killed you, Luo Nan became the one and only ruler of the Kree Empire. I was too careless back then. I did not notice the internal conflict of the Kree Empire in time. The Supreme Intellect sighed helplessly. She looked up at Kale and said with a strange expression, then who are you? I noticed just now that your body has a strange and powerful energy. It is very similar to a human woman I met when I was the ruler of the Kree Empire 20 years ago. A human woman? Similar fusion energy? Kale was interested and asked, just call me Kale. Can you tell me more about that woman? Kale, it doesn't matter if I tell you. Her name is Carol Danvers, an Air Force pilot on Earth, the Supreme Intelligence said slowly. After being struck by the energy tide of the shattered lightspeed engine, her body gained a mysterious energy that is 90% similar to the one you use. We, the Kree, had wanted to control her and use that energy for our own use, but we failed in the end. Hold on, you can't be a human from Earth as well, right? At this point, the Supreme Wisdom stared blankly at Kale and asked curiously. Congratulations, you got it right. Kale narrowed his eyes. There were actually other humans who had mastered the fusion energy earlier than him. This was something he had not expected. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Kale thought to himself, trying to think of the connection points. Fusion energy could not be born out of thin air. If there was a woman in the past who had obtained a power similar to his on Earth, it meant that there was a unique primer on Earth. The Supreme Wisdom lamented softly, Earth is truly a place filled with mysteries and miracles. Humans are also a race that constantly brings surprises. It's just so. Kale showed a rare moment of modesty. He raised his chin and suggested, since we have a common enemy, Luo Nan, you and I can work together to find a way to leave this place. Leave? The Supreme Wisdom was stunned. She then shook her head and said, since you've entered this place, don't even think about leaving. Otherwise, I would have returned to the original universe dimension long ago. Kale was not discouraged. He continued, what is this place exactly? The Supreme Wisdom answered seriously, as you can see, there is no time, space, or even superfluous matter. It is just a region of pure energy. It has not formed a complete dimensional dimension that can give birth to life. This dimensional dimension is sandwiched between countless space-time gaps. It is a place that does not exist. I don't know how Luo Nan found it. Kale looked at her with deep surprise and asked doubtfully, you are the Supreme Wisdom, the apex of consciousness life forms. Even you can't leave this dimensional region? I've just lived for a long time. My will is so strong that I can control the minds of any creature. My psychic power is enough to cross the universe. Other than that, I'm not much stronger than you, who has an extraordinary body. The Supreme Wisdom's tone was filled with helplessness. She then said straightforwardly, I'll tell you the truth. If you want to leave this unknown dimension, there are only two ways. Tell me. Kale nodded. The Supreme Wisdom extended a finger and smiled seductively. The first method is to abandon your original body and fuse your soul's consciousness with the pure energy here. Over time, you will become the ruler of this place. You will have the power to transcend the boundaries of dimensions and permeate into other dimensions. Don't mess with me. If there were no drawbacks, you would have done it long ago. Kale scoffed. When the Supreme Wisdom mentioned the first way, Domum's name instantly appeared in his mind. There are gains and losses, the Supreme Wisdom continued. The Supreme Wisdom continued, after obtaining the power of this dimension, your soul consciousness will be assimilated with this dimension. Although you can infiltrate other dimensions, you will never be able to completely leave this dimension for the rest of your life. This is because this dimension is your main body. I knew it. Kale sneered. He knew about Domum. When it assimilated with the dark dimension and became an invincible master, it was accompanied by endless loneliness and wildness. This was equivalent to giving you a cage the size of a world and letting you live in it alone for eternity. The second way is both simple and difficult, the Supreme Wisdom said softly. Using the interstellar teleportation ability, the dimension's boundary will not be broken, but it can be used as a springboard to jump back to the original universe. If it was me in the past, I could do this easily with the help of Carrie. But now, I don't have any tools. Even with my powerful psychic power, I can't do anything. After hearing this, Kale felt helpless. The teleportation ability took a big detour and came back here. The Supreme Wisdom was lacking a divine artifact, while Kyle was only lacking a mage's ring. Without the ring to open the mirror dimension space and without the rainbow bridge, he couldn't use the teleportation ability. Only you and I live in this dimension. In the future, you will be my neighbor. This planet formed from pure energy is yours. I will live on the planet next to it. After the Supreme Wisdom finished speaking, it waved goodbye and flew toward a slightly bigger planet. Master, what should we do now? Vice, who had transformed into a watch, asked. What else can we do? Let's stay here first. Let me think of something. Kale looked at the barren energy planet and then at the small planet not far away. He felt a little incredulous. 1 or 2 hours ago, he was still fighting the villain Ronan in the Milky Way Alliance. But now, he had to consider spending the rest of his life with a consciousness in an unknown dimension. Chapter 403. In an unknown dimension. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The ear-piercing sonic booms did not stop, causing violent winds to howl and wreak havoc. The consciousness of the Supreme Intelligence, which had changed back to its Mercury form, was lazily lying down in a hole in a small planet. Looking up, one could see a human-shaped dazzling streak of light speeding up in space, moving back and forth in this vast and boundless region, like a headless fly trying to find a breakthrough point. The traces of light even intertwined into a net in the region of space. After an unknown period of time, that streak of light reached beyond the speed of light and disappeared into the other side of the world, not leaving any traces behind. The Supreme Intelligence was stunned. Looking around at the silent starry sky, it was secretly surprised. Could it be that that fellow succeeded? Before it could finish speaking, light and sonic booms appeared from the other side of space. The Supreme Intelligence looked up at the human-shaped streak of light that was rushing towards it. It could not help but let out a sorrowful cry. Damn it! Kale, stop right now. The streak of light was like a comet, dragging a long tail of light as it landed on the planet where the Supreme Intelligence was. The small planet instantly shattered into pieces, turning into pure energy that spread out in all directions. My fifth favorite place is gone, all gone. The Supreme Intelligence floated in mid-air, its consciousness wriggling intensely, filled with anger as it gritted its teeth. After smashing the planet, that streak of dazzling light finally stopped, slowly coming to a stop in mid-air. After the dazzling light dissipated a little, the body of a human youth was finally revealed. Kale waved his hand at the consciousness and said, "Sorry, little Hui. I already said, without teleportation, don't think of using extreme speed to break through this region. Also, I am the Supreme Intelligence, don't call me little Hui." The Supreme Intelligence said righteously. Kale shrugged and said uninterestedly, "Aren't I just trying? Who knows, maybe there is a place here that is unstable and can accidentally break through the dimensional wall. It's useless. I already said that there is no space here, which is the concept of distance. Even if you search through the entire place, you won't be able to find the end of the dimensional wall." The Supreme Wisdom sighed and gave up on persuading him. Forget it, forget it. Even if I tell you 100 times, you still won't give up. Just keep trying. One day, you will give up. After all, the life and time here is endless." Having said that, the Supreme Wisdom simply ignored Kale and slowly flew towards another planet. Having met such a tormenting human, it could finally experience the true signs of the passing of time. This feeling wasn't bad. After the Supreme Intelligence had left, Kale did not attempt flight again. Instead, he returned to the planet he had first descended upon and sat cross-legged on the surface, holding his chin as he fell into deep thought. After coming to this dimension, he didn't know how much time had passed in his original world. It might have only been half a minute, half a year, or half a century. Without the concept of time, it was impossible to calculate and sense the time spent in this dimension. Even if he could calculate it, the time would be inaccurate. It didn't match the time of the original universe. Kale's flight escape plan had been attempted thousands of times, if not tens of thousands, but there was still no progress. On the contrary, his control and utilization of the fused energy had become more proficient. He had also become more familiar with flying at the speed of light in outer space. He wouldn't accidentally fly a few light years away. "Vice, is there any progress on your side?" Kale looked at the planet's surface not far away. There was a new signal tower that was 10 meters tall. Many technological products and krypton energy stored in the card space had been used to construct it. It was constructed with the Vice as the internal main system. According to the Vice calculation theory, the signal could reach Earth directly from the new star of the Milky Way alliance. He might be able to use it to send a distress signal to the original dimension. The Vice replied, "There is no breakthrough for now. Any signal of any frequency can only reverberate in this sealed dimension. Not even a single letter can be transmitted out." "Is that so? This is really troublesome." Kale didn't expect that it would be so difficult to return to the original dimension after being trapped in this dimension. Even he, who had mastered the fused energy, the vice, who was a top-notch product of technology, and the supreme intelligence of a biological consciousness entity, were powerless against this. This also gave Kale a new understanding of dimensions. The reason why other creatures from higher dimensions couldn't invade lower dimensions was because the dimensional walls were difficult to break or even search for. Do I really have to walk the path of Damuma, abandon my body, and use my soul consciousness to assimilate with the energy of this dimension? Kale muttered to himself. Suddenly, he placed his left hand on the planet's surface and gently closed his eyes, expelling all distracting thoughts from his mind. The divine power of fire and the mysterious light energy in his body instinctively combined into a fused energy. It attached itself to the surface of his body and circulated back and forth. Finally, it flowed down his arm and spread circles of dazzling ripples on the surface of the planet. The ripples of light covered the planet that was crystallized by pure energy. Kale seemed to be initiating the initial assimilation with the planet. "Master, what are you doing?" Vice's voice sounded bewildered. The signal tower quickly transformed into a car and ignited its engine. It left the planet that Kale was on and observed from a safe distance in space. The Mercury-like consciousness floated over from afar and stopped beside the car. The Supreme Intelligence said, "It seems that your master has already chosen that path. He has given up his original body and become an invincible ruler bound here for eternity." How can this be? Vice clenched its metal fists and stared at Kale, who had become one with the energy planet. It still couldn't believe that the man in front of it would walk that path at the end of his rope. There's nothing bad about this. To many creatures, this is also an opportunity in the universe. The Supreme Intelligence had lived for thousands of eras and had long seen through people's hearts. It said coldly, although he has given up everything he had before, he has obtained the power, lifespan, and absolute control that others yearn for. Vice shook its head and refuted firmly, "What do you know? To the current master, things like power and lifespan are no longer dreams. They are goals that can be easily obtained. He who pursues perfection will definitely not choose to give up everything in the original dimension. Then let's wait and see." The Supreme Intelligence wasn't angry and said indifferently. As time passed, Kale almost turned into a small figure of light and emitted an extremely dazzling light in this dimensional region. The energy planet below also turned into a ball of light. The energy aura of the two completely merged into one. Everything seemed to be developing rapidly in the direction of assimilation. With a boom, the entire energy planet suddenly disappeared as if it had been absorbed and evaporated into nothingness. Chapter 404. Master. Vice rushed towards Kale in surprise. Seeing that his original body was still there, he grinned, revealing a row of metal gears. "I knew that you wouldn't choose to give up your body. Of course, I won't be the second Domum." Kale smiled. If he were to give up everything he once had and evolve to his current superhuman body, he would really be taking things too hard. "What's going on? You clearly used the energy in your body to assimilate with the planet, and the entire energy planet was absorbed by you. Why do you still have a human body, and there aren't any signs of assimilation?" The utmost wisdom stared fixedly at Kyle. Even his transcendent consciousness was stuck, unable to comprehend everything that had happened earlier on with his own knowledge. Kale calmed himself down and asked, "Who said that the energy planet was absorbed by me? If you didn't absorb it, then where did the energy planet go?" The Supreme Wisdom didn't know what was going on, but it could sense that the pure energy crystal had indeed completely disappeared from this dimension. "It was taken away by me." Kale smiled faintly. Looking at the Supreme Wisdom who wanted to continue asking, he shrugged and said, "The specific details are business secrets, so I can't tell you. I can only tell you that I might have found a way to leave this place." After Kale finished speaking, he took a deep breath and sank his consciousness into the card space. There was a brand new purple card quietly hanging in the air. Pure energy crystal, a pure energy crystal the size of a small planet. Purple item card. A crystal formed by the combination of pure energy, the size of a small planet. It can be exploited to produce electricity, light energy, heat energy, and so on. Powerful creatures can absorb this pure energy to strengthen their body and consciousness. At the same time, their body and soul will assimilate with the dimension that produces this energy. They can't stay in other dimensions for long. After absorbing a certain amount, they will be forced to become the master of that dimension. Current status can be summoned as a physical body. It can actually be done like this. Kale was speechless. It was as if he had accidentally opened the door to a new world. He didn't expect that after adjusting the energy in his body to assimilate with the planet, he could directly read the card and extract the energy from the planet. Furthermore, the level of this pure energy ball card was actually ridiculously high. As for the positional dimensional region, there was nothing there. However, what it lacked the least was pure energy. Coming out of the card space, Kale quickly looked around. Looking at the thousands of large and small energy clusters floating in the dimension, his golden eyes suddenly flashed with a green glow of excitement. This was a wealth of resources that no one had ever excavated since ancient times. Kale, you said that you have a way to leave this place? The Supreme Wisdom could not contain his excitement as he asked Kale. Kale nodded and said confidently, I can't guarantee it. However, he finally saw a glimmer of hope. Next, I need to make use of the energy planets in this dimension. The Supreme Wisdom pondered for a moment and finally chose to believe in the human youth. It replied, no problem. Just leave me a place to settle down. When you find a way to leave this place, I hope you can take me with you. You can put forward any conditions for the deal. Sure. Kale agreed. Looking at the surrounding energy planets, he picked the next target and flew over quickly. He started the prelude of assimilation by marking his aura and imprint on the energy star cluster. Then, he did not absorb it into his body but just directly extracted it into cards. Kale repeated this step and transformed into a planet plunderer, turning the energy clusters of the unknown dimension into high-level cards one by one. There was plenty of time here. Kale was not in a hurry at all. Under the process of card extraction, the number of energy planets in the vast positional dimensional region continued to decrease. Not long after, the vast space became dark. On the other hand, in the material area of the card space, the number of purple item cards continued to increase. 10 cards. 100 cards. 500 cards. Only when he drew 607 cards did Kale stop his frenzied plundering. It was not that the energy clusters in the positional dimensional region had been depleted, but that the positional dimensional region had lost a large amount of pure energy and was showing signs of collapse and self-destruction. However, this was already an unprecedented huge gain. Inside the card space, Kale's thought incarnation looked at the neatly arranged purple cards in front of him. There were more than 1,000 of them, densely packed and suspended in the air, emitting a bright and alluring purple luster. Family Cal's half a century of accumulation on Earth, which was 10,000 blue item cards, Krypton, was already a wealth that could rival a country's resources. Now, there were more than 600 purple item cards. This amount of resources could easily buy a civilized planet. Sacrificing 10 purple grade cards can directly draw 3 types of cards that start from purple grade. In other words, I can draw 60 purple grade cards and even have a high probability of producing a gold grade card. Even Kale found it hard to calm down when he thought of this. One had to know that he only had a few purple grade cards on him. Items, abilities, and creatures that reached this grade, no matter which one it was, had extraordinary value. Purple grade cards were definitely of high quality. No, what am I thinking? The most important thing now is to pray that I can find a way to leave this dimension. It would be great if I can get a hanging ring. Although Kale had such thoughts, it was not realistic because the hanging ring had not reached the purple grade yet. It was not within the scope of this card draw. No matter what he drew, it would not be of much help to him now. As long as he could draw an item related to interstellar teleportation, it would be fine. Kale prayed in his heart, rubbed his palms together, took a deep breath, and chose 100 purple item cards to sacrifice. Purple grade 10 consecutive draws, you have sacrificed, pure energy crystal, x 100. Draw successful. Congratulations, you have received, life enhancement, x2, pride beast infant, lust beast infant, gluttony beast infant, greed beast infant, sloth beast infant, rage beast infant, envy beast infant, devouring beast infant. Kale, there were too many things to complain about, he did not know where to start. First of all, the common life enhancement card appeared again, and there were 2 of them. Secondly, why were the remaining 8 life enhancement cards all life enhancement cards? Was this a sudden burst of good luck, or was it bad luck? It was not like he was going to stay here, but to draw a teleportation item or ability card that could allow him to leave this dimension. Forget it, let's just take a look. Maybe the baby creature that I draw has the ability to teleport. Kale could only comfort himself like this. He took the 8 strange life enhancement cards in his hands and read them carefully one by one. Pride beast, lust beast. This is enough for the 7 sins. Is this the so-called card series? Chapter 405. Young beast of pride, a young evil beast spirit that has mastered the power of pride. Purple creature card. Spirit beasts usually existed in the form of consciousness, like a mass of black fog. When they matured, they could transform into a monster-like physical body, with sharp claws and fangs, powerful strength and physique. They were war creatures that were born purely for killing. The beast spirit of pride was arrogant and conceited. It could not move freely when it was young and could only merge with human-like creatures with similar personalities. After merging, the creature would be randomly given a natural ability such as body strengthening, high-speed flight, lightning control, and so on. Current status, physical summon available. The second card was the same. Young beast of lust, a young evil beast spirit that has mastered the power of lust. Purple creature card. Beast spirits usually existed in the form of consciousness. The beast spirit of lust was lustful and lustful. It could not move freely when it was young and could only merge with human-like creatures with similar personalities. After merging, the creature would be randomly given a natural ability such as negative emotions absorption, mind control, mind reading, and so on. Current status, physical summon available. The third card. Young beast of gluttony, a young evil beast spirit that has mastered the power of gluttony. Purple creature card. Beast spirits usually existed in the form of consciousness. The beast spirit of gluttony was lustful and lustful. It could not move freely when it was young and could only merge with human-like creatures with similar personalities. After merging, the creature would be randomly given a natural ability such as evil magic, nibbling absorption, black hole mouth, and so on. Current status, physical summon available. There were also similar cards like the 4th, 5th, 6th, and up to the 7th, which made up the 7 sins beast spirits. Kyle was so surprised that he clicked his tongue in wonder. The 7 cards in his hand were really the same type of creature cards, with the prefix from pride to jealousy. They corresponded to the evil beast spirit creatures of the 7 sins, and even the attributes of the cards were similar. These evil beast spirits were similar to the symbiotic body venom that he had just extracted. They were all in the infant state and could only survive by attaching themselves to other creatures. They could strengthen the host's body and give them powerful superpowers. After Kale finished looking through them, his gaze fell on one of the creature cards. Young beast of sloth, a young evil beast spirit that has mastered the power of sloth. Purple creature card. Beast spirits usually existed in the form of consciousness. The sloth beast spirit was lazy, unable to move freely when it was young. It could only fuse with a humanoid creature with the same personality. After fusing, it would give the creature a random innate ability, such as teleportation, space gate, slow halo, etc. Current status: physical summon is available. The Sin of Sloth grants the host the superpower of teleportation and space manipulation. Withdrawing from the card space, Kale's eyes flickered. He stood up from a planet, flipped his left hand, and immediately pulled out a purple creature card. After the physical summon, the card disappeared from his hand, and a cloud of black mist suddenly surged out. The tiny black mist-like creature with its incorporeal body curled up lazily after seeing Kale beside him. It then lowered its posture and said respectfully, "Obeying your call, Sloth is at your service, my lord." "Are you lazy?" Kale looked at the fog-like creature from head to toe, looked down at it, and said straightforwardly, "Can you attach yourself to my body and use your teleportation ability?" "Let me try." The sloth beast spirit tried to fly forward, circled around Kale a few times, and then retreated with fear and regret. "My lord, forgive me for not being able to do that. You don't have any lazy habits, and your body has power that far exceeds mine. The double rejection makes me unable to enter your body." "I understand, you can go back." Kale sighed, waved his hand forward, and the sloth beast spirit was instantly converted back into a card and thrown back into the card space. The sloth beast spirit needed to be a parasite on its host to barely use its teleportation ability. Where was he going to find a creature with Sloth's personality now? "I can only continue drawing." "Wait a minute." Kale suddenly remembered that there was still a creature card that he had not checked, so he directly pulled it out and held the card between his two fingers. Dimensional Devouring Beast Youth, can devour the youth of a monster from another dimension. Rare purple ability card. I didn't notice it just now, but this is actually a rare purple creature card. Kale opened his eyes wide, held the card, and continued to check the description in detail. The Dimensional Devouring Beast has a cute and harmless appearance, and a super strong devouring ability. It is an extremely dangerous dimensional creature. It is an oviparous creature, with tentacles and sharp teeth in its mouth, and can devour almost everything. Its stomach is connected to another dimension, so it will not get fat no matter how many things it devours. The Dimensional Devouring Beast's intelligence is low, it can only understand simple instructions, and cannot speak human language or distinguish between right and wrong. Current status: can summon a physical body. A creature that can devour everything? Cute appearance? What does it look like? Kale's curiosity grew stronger, he pondered for a moment, and summoned the creature card in his hand. He could just take a look at it directly. With a flash of light, a palm-sized orange creature suddenly appeared, jumped onto Kale's left shoulder, and licked his face affectionately with its tongue. Kale looked like he had suffered a blow, looking at the little creature on his shoulder, his mouth twitching slightly. "This is the extremely dangerous Dimensional Devouring Beast?" That was clearly a cat. To be more precise, it was an orange cat cub, less than 3 months old. When Kale looked at it, the orange cat cub even shouted, "Meow. Let me take a look at your mouth." Kale pondered, grabbed the orange cat's neck, lifted it in front of him, and used his pinky fingers to pry open the cat's mouth. It is indeed not an ordinary species from Earth. Kale's eyes lit up, there was surprisingly no fishy smell in the cat's mouth, there were new sharp teeth and small tentacles in the inner wall of its mouth, and there was a hole in its throat that had a mysterious suction force, like a miniature version of a black hole. Achoo! After being played with by Kale, the orange cat cub suddenly sneezed, and fell from his hand into his arms. The orange cat cub sniffed, as if it had smelled something, and pounced on Kale's lower abdomen excitedly. Several tentacles opened its mouth, and it did not hesitate to bite Kale's lower body. F***CK. Kale felt a chill in his lower body, as if something in his body had been bitten. He hurriedly grabbed the orange cat cub's body and pulled it away from his body. Meow. The moment the orange cat cub left Kale's body, one of the tentacles wrapped around a dazzling blue gem, and it was pulled out from his lower abdomen bit by bit. That is... no way. The moment the blue gem appeared, Kale held his breath, his eyes and mind seemed to be attracted, and his body was frozen in place like a statue. It was the space gem that had not been seen for many years. At the end of World War II, Kale used the space gem to open the transmission light beam to leave Earth, and it mysteriously disappeared. Kale originally thought that it had been left behind on planet Sokka, but he did not expect that it had been hidden in his body all this time, and had not left his body for more than half a century. He suddenly realized where the mysterious light energy that formed the fusion energy, other than the divine power of fire, came from. At the same time, Kale was very sure that they would be able to leave this dimensional area very soon. Chapter 406. The capital of the Keri Empire, within the Supreme Palace. Luo Nan sat paralyzed on the throne with a pale face. He held the Keri warhammer in one hand and the armrest in the other. He gasped for breath in large mouthfuls, and sweat dripped endlessly from his deep blue forehead. Clearly, Luo Nan's powerful body was unable to endure the absolute disadvantage of a fierce battle and the forced interstellar teleportation. That human male called Kyle. Luo Nan still had lingering fears. The opponent was really too strong. The oppressive feeling she gave him was in no way inferior to the one he had encountered on Earth, the one called Captain Marvel. In fact, Kale was faintly stronger than Captain Marvel. Tap tap tap. The elite guards of the Keri Empire heard the sounds of fighting and arrived late. They entered through the heavily damaged enormous door in a single file. The captain of the guards of the Keri Empire held a spear in his hand. He looked around at the frozen, scorched, and baptized palace hall. He couldn't help but look impatiently at Luo Nan in his seat. He lowered his head and asked, "Lord Luo Nan, what happened? Are you all right?" "Of course I'm fine. What can mere intruders do to me?" Luo Nan restrained his emotions and snorted coldly. His face was taut with dignity. "Of course you are. There is no one in the entire Milky Way alliance that is stronger than you, Lord Luo Nan." The captain of the guards quickly nodded in agreement. Then he spoke with a difficult expression, "I still have something to report. It's the Keri interstellar fleet that left planet Kree for an expedition. The interstellar ships have returned one after another. Over half of the ships were destroyed during this expedition. The Keri Legion's guards suffered disastrous casualties. Even the commander of this expedition was buried in outer space." "Okay, I already know." Luo Nan's face was as heavy as water. His eyes were filled with rage. No one knew what he was thinking. The captain of the guards asked gravely, "Lord Luo Nan, we provoked the new star in the past. Now that the Keri Legion has suffered such heavy losses, what should we do if the new star takes the opportunity to counterattack?" The other armed guards heard this and their hearts trembled. The palace hall fell into a deathly silence. Luo Nan gripped the Keri warhammer tightly and spoke in a deep voice, "What are you panicking for? Help me inform Titan Thanos that I know the whereabouts of the universal spiritual orb. If he wants to get it, then immediately send enough forces to assist me." "Yes, I'll contact them right away and pass on your request." The guard captain accepted the order, as if he knew that the situation was urgent, and quickly left the hall. The remaining armed guards cleaned up the mess in the hall and reignited the blue flame candles on both sides of the hall. The Universal Spirit Orb. Thanos. Luo Nan muttered to himself. He was endlessly gloomy in his heart. If he had enough strength and was able to seize the Spirit Orb from Kale's hands, how could he be willing to give the Spirit Orb to Thanos? Thanos' strength and influence might be strong, but Luo Nan didn't want to be a chess piece. Luo Nan wanted to be the absolute controller of his own fate. "I have to reconsider," Luo Nan was thinking about the future when quite a few carry guards suddenly cried out in alarm from the main hall below Supreme Stage. Luo Nan was in a trance for a moment. He looked towards the source of the sound, as if he was startled awake. He saw that the floor of the main hall, which was still imprinted with teleportation runes, glowed with a subtle blue light for no reason. The light fell upon the original imprint of the carry divine artifact, and the light formed a blue pillar of light in the center of the main hall. The other end of the spatial pillar of light broke through the void of the ceiling. It seemed to connect to a distant third dimension. The dozen or so carry guards were stupefied. They didn't dare to approach the pillar of light. They retreated endlessly to create a safe distance. How can this be? This feeling is... Luo Nan's eyes widened in shock. The blue pillar of light stabilized, reflecting the tall figure of the silver-haired human youth. His body quickly recovered from its translucent state to its true state. Kale didn't look any different from before. He just changed his clothes, his hair was a bit longer, and there was a little orange cat on his left shoulder. The blue beam of light dissipated inch by inch, and the main hall returned to its original gloomy darkness. Kale looked all around the main hall. He confirmed that they had returned to the original dimension and the original Carry Palace Hall. Only then did he let out a long sigh of relief. Heaven knows how many places they had passed through using the space gem before finally returning to the original dimensional universe in a seemingly accurate manner. Fortunately, the ending was good, and it seemed that not much time had passed in the original dimensional universe. The feeling of returning is really good. Kale sighed with emotion. He raised his head to meet Luo Nan's gaze on the throne. He couldn't help but wave his hand, and the corner of his mouth rose into a smile as he said, "Hey, Luo Nan. Long time no see." "No. For you, it should be several minutes." How is this possible?" Even with Luo Nan's firm and cold temperament, his face was deathly pale at this moment. His body trembled slightly. He didn't dare to believe that what had happened was reality. Luo Nan was actually able to return safely after being exiled to an unknown dimension. Was it so easy to break through and cross dimensional regions? What kind of life form dares to enter the Supreme Palace without permission? The other carry guards in the main hall didn't know that the two had already gone through a contest. They saw Kale suddenly appear, and they stepped forward with weapons in hand with vigilance. They wanted to capture the outsider Kale. "You dare?" Kale maintained a smile on his face as he casually shot a glance at the carry guards surrounding him. The carry guards all stopped in their tracks and looked at each other in dismay. They felt a wave of mental pressure and the might of a king emanating from Kale's body. "You brought her out as well." Luo Nan couldn't sit still any longer. He stood up from the throne in both anger and fear. "Meow." The orange kitten on Kale's shoulder breathed out sleepily. It opened its small mouth, and a mass of mercury-like consciousness drilled out from between its teeth. "Do you still recognize me?" Soon after, an indifferent and fleeting voice suddenly rang out in the sea of consciousness of the carry guards. This cold and indifferent voice was only directed at Luo Nan alone. "And you, criminal Luo Nan." Luo Nan gripped the carry warhammer hard. His knuckles turned white from gripping it so hard that they made cracking sounds. This was the situation he didn't want to see the most. The prerequisite for Luo Nan to become the Carry Emperor was to get rid of the Supreme Intellect. And now, the Supreme Intellect had returned safely. This undoubtedly declared the destruction of Luo Nan's identity as the Carry Emperor. Supreme Intellect? The carry guards in the main hall looked at the consciousness body in bewilderment. The weapons in their hands fell to the ground, and soon their knees fell to the ground. They quickly changed sides and spoke in an incomparably frantic manner, "Supreme Intellect. We were all forced by Luo Nan. Since Supreme Intellect has returned, it is destined to overthrow Luo Nan's tyranny." "Right. That's right." Luo Nan's eyes turned completely red as he looked at Wuxia, who was his subordinate just a moment ago. He stared fixedly at Wuxia, who was now a traitor of the supreme wisdom. He raised the Chris warhammer in his hand high up in the air. Continue the banishment. Before Luo Nan could finish speaking, he saw a dazzling stream of light sweep across the main hall. It was like a flash of lightning. Kale, who was originally standing in the main hall, had already arrived in front of Luo Nan. His entire body was encircled with fused energy. His hand, enhanced by the strengthening of fusion energy, grabbed Luo Nan's neck. My apologies. The same move doesn't have any effect on me. Kale spoke in a calm whisper. As the fusion energy circulated, his hand suddenly exerted force and completely crushed Luo Nan's neck. He didn't even give Luo Nan the chance to use his artifact. He killed him in one strike. Chapter 407. Though his neck had been crushed by Kyle, Luo Nan didn't die immediately. His eyes were wide open, nearly popping out of their sockets. His expression was filled with resentment, and he seemed to want to say something with great difficulty. But as his life force dissipated, his consciousness darkened, and Kerr's warhammer fell to the floor with a clang. After Luo Nan let go of the warhammer, his body went limp from Kale's hand. He was clearly dead. Seeing Luo Nan killed in an instant, the Creed guards lowered their heads submissively. They held their breaths in shock, not daring to make a sound. The consciousness floated in the hall and spoke in the minds of the guards. You all saw it. The criminal Luo Nan has received the justice he deserved. The Creed Empire will return to its former peace and prosperity. Go and inform the upper echelons of the Creed Empire to come here immediately for a meeting. Yes, Supreme Wisdom. The Creed guards naturally did not dare to disobey. They obeyed and quickly left the hall. Mr. Kale. According to the agreement, the Creed Empire will treat you as the most important guest in the future, and you are not allowed to start a galactic war. The Supreme Wisdom's attitude towards Kale was very respectful. If the other upper echelons of the Creed Empire and Luo Nan saw this, they would be shocked to the extreme. It's fine as long as you don't provoke me. As for the Creed Empire, it has nothing to do with me. Kale said casually as he threw Luo Nan's corpse back onto the throne. He waved his hand and the Creed warhammer slowly flew into his hand. Seeing this, the Supreme Wisdom could not help but speak awkwardly, that. Mr. Kale, the Creed warhammer is the inherited artifact of our Creed civilization. It needs to be in the hands of the Creed to display its true power. Yes, I know. Kale patted the head of the orange cat on his shoulder. He picked up the warhammer and passed it to his left shoulder. The orange cat was confused, but it opened its mouth and swallowed the entire Creed warhammer. Kale smiled. That's my spoils of war from killing Luo Nan. I'll feed it to my Goldie. It's over. I met this interstellar bandit. The artifact is gone. The Supreme Wisdom cursed in its heart, but it laughed on the surface. Of course, as long as Mr. Kale likes it. All right. I won't interfere with your Carrie civilization's matters. Bye-bye. Kale waved his hand and circulated the fused energy in his body. Rings of flames rose from his body. Finally, he leaped up and flew toward the sky outside the palace. It was only when the trail of light dissipated that the true form of the Supreme Wisdom squirmed and exclaimed, "The human race is truly incredible. I'm afraid that Earth's civilization will rise rapidly soon." Milky Way Alliance, hundreds of millions of light-years away. Near the Titan star system, a gigantic spaceship the size of a planet was floating quietly in the dark outer sky, like a steel wall in the universe. Within the spacious cockpit of the interstellar spaceship, 5 powerful alien species of different races, weapons, and appearances stood side by side in the hall, waiting for orders. They gave off an oppressive aura. Among them, there was a muscular monster as strong as a giant with a metal axe, a dark-skinned woman with a shining spear, a white-haired old man with his hands behind his back, an ugly undead creature with a grim reaper's scythe, and a mysterious witch with a white glow in her eyes. Titan's 5 tiger generals. Every one of them was a strong person in the starry sky who could easily trample Luo Nan under their feet. At this moment, they all lowered their heads respectfully and looked at the high-tech chair in front of them. The chair floated in the air in the room, and as the chair slowly rotated, the person sitting on it was a tall and sturdy Titan man who was over 3 meters tall. He was wearing the Titan clothes that he was used to, and his skin was dark purple. His entire body was full of pressure that made one's heart tremble. Thanos held his chin and tapped his face with his fingers. He said calmly and hoarsely, "So, that child Goldie betrayed me?" The dark-skinned woman said respectfully, "Master, according to the current situation, it should be so. I suspect that she knows a few things about the Infinity Gem. Yeah, she's always been like this. She doesn't let people have peace of mind." Thanos tapped his finger on the chair. He didn't think too much and directly gave an order, "Supergiant, make a trip. Bring Goldie back to see me in one piece." "Yes, Master." The dark-skinned woman nodded. She held her spear and raised her cloak as she left the command room. The white-haired old man said slowly, "Master, the Carey Empire just sent news. Luo Nan said that he has grasped information about the Universal Orb. He now wants your protection and assistance." Thanos didn't procrastinate. He said in a deep voice, "Then make a trip, Ebony Throat. Bring the Universal Orb back to me." "Understood. I will definitely complete the mission." The white-haired old man bowed. His feet left the ground and he left the hall. After the two left, the hall fell silent once more. Thanos looked at the remaining 3 and said, "Is there anything else I need to know right now?" "Yes, Master." The muscular monster said in a hoarse voice, "The dwarves have already finished forging the gloves that can control the Infinity Gem. They're waiting for you to inspect them. Is that so? Has this day finally arrived?" Thanos grinned and ordered, "Black Short Star, you go and get the gloves back for me. Kill all the dwarfs while you're at it. Leave the Dwarf King alive, but you need to cut off his dominant hand for forging. Destroy the neutron star furnace for me as well." "I understand." The muscular monster lifted his giant axe and stomped on the floor. He dragged his bulky body out of the control room. There were only 2 subordinates left in the hall. "There's one more thing. It's about Earth." The mysterious witch spoke. The undead creature spoke in a sinister voice, "What a coincidence. I wanted to mention Earth as well." The 2 subordinates actually mentioned the same place at the same time. Thanos couldn't help but touch his chin. "Tell me about it." The mysterious witch said, "Last time, the second prince of Asgard, Loki, didn't he talk to you? He is now leading the mechanical race to Earth. He said that he will bring the Rubik's Cube back to you to show his loyalty." The undead creature continued her words and said, "According to my investigation, the sorcerers of Earth have been holding the time gem for many years. In addition, recently, there have been traces of ether particles, which are the reality gems, on Earth." "You mean, there are 3 infinity gems on Earth?" Thanos's face changed slightly. He walked down from his seat and stood up to look at his 2 subordinates. "Yes, Master. Loki may not be reliable. You can send me to Earth." The mysterious witch suggested. "I'm also willing to go to Earth." The undead creature nodded at the same time. "Very good, very good." Thanos was obviously in a good mood. He pondered for a moment, looked at his 2 subordinates, and said in a deep voice, "Alpha Centauri, General Deathblade, then you 2 husband and wife will go and help me bring back all 3 gems." "Yes." Alpha Centauri and General Deathblade looked at each other, then bowed and left. Perhaps even Kale didn't expect that Thanos would send his capable subordinates to collect the Infinity Gems a few years earlier than originally. Chapter 408. Galaxy Alliance, New Star Empire. A ray of light was like a meteorite from outer space, entering the atmosphere at light speed. Even the satellite defense system and the New Star core were unable to react. The ray of light made a turn at an altitude of 1,000 meters, its speed decreasing as it headed straight for the Star Palace, the political center of the New Star Empire. Who? The ray of light stopped abruptly when it reached the sky above the Star Palace. As the light of the fusion energy dissipated, Kale, who was wearing a spacesuit, was revealed. Alert, alert. External intrusion detected. The AI defense system sounded with a delay. Dozens of small aircraft swarmed over, surrounding Kale, who was floating in the air. Huh? Kale raised his eyebrows. An aircraft arrived in front of Kale and emitted a scanning laser. After checking, it immediately removed the alert state and switched to a soft and gentle AI voice. Respected Mr. Kale, welcome back. The New Star ruler has been notified. Please allow me to be your guide. The other security aircraft scattered in all directions, leaving only one. After Kale nodded in agreement, the aircraft entered guide mode and brought him to the inner hall of the Star Palace. The Star Palace was the political center of the New Star. Compared to the ancient palace of the Carey Empire, the Star Palace swept away the aura of barbarism. The building was completely made of metal and glass, with the aura of advanced technology flowing everywhere. Kale had just stepped into the hall when he saw the New Star female ruler and a few officers of the New Star Corps, personally welcoming him. The New Star ruler arrived in front of Kale, smiling so much that even the wrinkles on his face stretched out. Mr. Kale, the New Star welcomes you. Looks like you've already received the news. Kale saw their enthusiasm and spoke indifferently. Yes. The New Star ruler nodded and suddenly bowed, saying sincerely, Mr. Kale, you've killed Luo Nan and removed a huge scourge for our New Star. On behalf of the entire New Star, I offer my highest respect and gratitude to you. The high-ranking officers of the New Star Corps also bowed and thanked him. There's no need for that. Kale's face was calm as he waved his hand. This is just a transaction. To us, it's not as simple as a transaction. The New Star ruler sighed. Luo Nan has done a lot of bad things in the Milky Way alliance. He kept breaking the Milky Way peace agreement and tried to start an interstellar war. You killed him. Milky Way alliance will treat this as a heroic achievement. Hero, I'm tired of working on Earth. Don't involve me in the Milky Way alliance. Kyle shrugged nonchalantly, looked around, and said, Where are my people? The New Star head of state smiled. They've all been arranged to stay in the guest room on the second floor. Take me there. Thinking about what he was about to do, Kyle couldn't wait any longer. Star Palace, second floor, guest room. Star ruler, Star was Star ruler of the New Star. One group was led by Kyle. They were Iron Man Tony, Magnetron Lorna, Pet by Bo, and Slave Green Peak. One group was led by Star-Lord Quill. They were Drax the Destroyer, Groot the Trey-Ant, Rocket the Brown Bear, and Galmola, Thanos' adopted daughter. Rocket sat on the sofa with his hands crossed over his chest. He looked at Star-Lord, Drax, and Galora and said, Speaking of which, Groot and I are just here for the bounty of the Universe Orb. Now that the Universe Orb is gone, why should I be with you guys? Drax snorted coldly and said in a deep voice, I'm here for revenge on Luo Nan. I will fight whoever is Luo Nan's enemy. Then you should sit on that side. Rocket's eyes drifted and motioned to Tawny and others. That's true. Drax nodded and actually got up, left the sofa where Star-Lord and others were sitting, and sat down next to Tawny. Okay, there's one less person. Rocket saw this and spread out his hands comically. Galora said coldly, Let's see if the man named Kale can kill Luo Nan. If he has that strength, maybe he can really fight against Thanos. So, we are tied to them? Rocket showed a slightly puzzled expression. Being restrained and free is not what he pursues. I don't care. Mr. Kale is a human from Earth, so am I. Drax seemed very natural. He had no fixed residence in the Galaxy Alliance, so it made no difference where he went. Galora looked at Rocket and gave a suggestion: if you want to leave, you can go, but be careful. You have already been involved with the Infinity Stone and know Thanos' secret. Thanos' men are likely to come to kill you. Thanos' men? How powerful are they? I, Rocket, have never been afraid of them. Rocket patted Groot's chest as he spoke. Groot! The Tree Man shouted. Galora snorted and said, I admit that the Tree Man is very powerful, but compared to Thanos' men, they are not on the same level. That man has the 5 Tiger Generals, and each of them is stronger than Luo Nan. Stronger than Luo Nan? Rocket blinked and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He thought about it and sat back on the sofa. Then I'll stay with you. If those people come, you have to block them for me. Don't worry, Mr. Kale is here. Quill was obviously a boaster. On Earth, the influence of the symbol of peace was so great that it had gradually become deified. Everyone was still talking when the door suddenly opened, and Kale walked into the reception room at the front. Boss! Lorna was still holding Bai Bo in her hand, but when she saw Kale, she immediately jumped up, threw Bai Bo back to the sofa, and rushed forward. Godfather! Tawny's taut face relaxed a bit, and he put down the steel mask in his hand. He was prepared to go to the Nemesis Empire to reinforce them at any time. Kale had a smile on his face as he hugged Lorna. Everyone in the room stood up and looked at him expectantly. The new star leader walked forward in a dignified manner and said slowly, Everyone, Luo Nan has been killed by Mr. Kale. According to the terms of the deal, some of your wanted posters will be removed, and you will be our new star's first-class VIP. You will receive the protection of the new star army and all kinds of special privileges. That's great. For many people present, losing Luo Nan's oppression and gaining the friendship of the new star empire was a pleasant surprise. Especially Drax the Destroyer, who immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Kale a few times, promising, Mr. Kale, you have avenged me. No matter what it is in the future, I will do it as long as you say the word. Get up. Kale waved his hand, and the force field helped Drax's body up. Godfather, then we're going to. Tawny looked at him, his words nervous and excited. It's been so many years. It's about time. Kale smiled in relief, and he turned to look at Quill, saying forcefully, Quill, we're going to set off now. You lead the way. We're going to the planet where Howard is. One of his long-cherished wishes of many years had finally come true. Chapter 409. Galaxy Alliance, Pico Star, located in a remote corner of civilization. This was a planet that had experienced the prosperity of a new star. Later, due to the excessive population base of the local race, the energy and food on the planet were exhausted, and it eventually became a deserted planet that went extinct. Because there was no energy collection on Pico Star, only the technological civilization garbage from a few centuries ago was left. High-level civilizations and even interstellar hunters would not set foot here. Only some poor wandering aliens were forced to live here. Today, this barren Pico Star once again welcomed a special guest from outer space after a long time. The skinny alien child, dressed in ragged clothes, carried a backpack and rummaged through the garbage mountain. He found a relatively intact t-shirt and immediately put it on happily, as if this was already a gift from God. He clasped his hands together and thanked the sunset sky. At this moment, 2 starlights emerged from the sky. In the alien child's bewildered eyes, the starlights grew bigger and bigger, and finally turned into an Eagle space warship and an Orange space warship. The 2 space warships continued to descend and finally stopped in mid-air on the garbage mountain where the alien child was. The Orange space warship's hatch opened. Star-Lord Quill adjusted his clothes and walked to the hatch. He said to the alien child below, Hey kid, I want to ask you something. The alien child shivered in fright and took a few steps back to hide behind a large garbage instrument. Quill rubbed his nose awkwardly. In the cockpit behind him, Galora could not help but shake his head. The brown bear Rocket walked out happily and took the opportunity to sneer at Quill's calf. "You can't even handle a child. Watch me." Rocket came to the hatch and coughed. The alien child suddenly revealed an eye and peeked at him. Rocket grinned in a friendly manner and suddenly raised the energy gun on his back. He said fiercely, "Little brat, if you don't want to die, tell us everything you know." Before he could finish speaking, Rocket was grabbed by a hand from behind and thrown back. "You two can't be like this." That person was Gola. She walked like a cat and gently jumped from the space warship onto the garbage mountain. "Don't worry, we won't hurt you." Gola came to the side of the trembling alien child. She, who usually killed without batting an eye, was surprisingly gentle in front of the child. She took out a red apple from her pocket and handed it over. The alien child looked at the apple and swallowed his saliva. After Gola nodded, the child grabbed the apple with both hands, opened his mouth, and wolfed it down. He even ate the seeds. After eating the apple, the alien child calmed down and asked, "What do you want to know?" Gola said gently, "Our warship has some problems. I heard that there's a mechanic called Howard here who can repair space warships." "Are you looking for Master Howard?" The alien kid laughed and said, "That's right. His repair skills are the best in our world. He lives at the foot of the mountain not far from here. I'll take you there." As he spoke, the alien child made a face at Quill and Rocket. "That little brat." Rocket gritted his teeth and rolled up his sleeves. He wanted to go all out, but he was quickly stopped by Quill. Okay. It's good that you found the location. Don't lower yourself to the child's level." On another Eagle warship, Kale saw that Gola and the alien child had reached a consensus and nodded. "Looks like they've found the location." Clang! The sound of metal falling to the ground came from the lounge behind. Tawny was still anxiously shouting, "Jarvis, quickly help me take off the lower half of my battle suit. I want to change my clothes." "Yes, sir," Jarvis responded. Then, there was another sound of metal being removed. Kale and Lorna looked at each other and smiled knowingly. They had waited for this day for too long. Even Tawny, who was still a child in the past, had wrinkles and a beard. "You're looking forward to it too, boss." Lorna reached out her hands and held Kale's left palm, feeling the heat and trembling. "Yes, it's really been a long time. Howard, Logan, and Lucy." Kale sighed. Seeing the nervous look on Lorna's face, he held her hand and said slowly, "Don't worry, Lucy will accept you and Yutong. No matter what." Yutong and Lorna, these two women, had accompanied Kyle all the way through wind, rain, frost, and snow. He couldn't give them up so easily. If they wanted to stay, Kale had no reason to refuse. While marching to the top of the universe's evolutionary chain, he couldn't have any regrets. Otherwise, in the end, he would be like Thanos, Domum, and Alpha Centauri, living alone forever. "Boss." Lorna's heart trembled and tears almost flowed out of her eyes. She had waited for this sentence for too long. South of Pico Planet, there was a building that was pieced together from various civilizations' trash. It was 20 meters tall and had a unique interior and exterior. Compared to the surrounding trash mountains, this building was luxurious beyond recognition. There were even Stark and SHELD logos on the signboard. A sun chair was placed in front of the building's entrance. A white-haired old man in casual clothes was lying on it, bathing in the sunlight that was filtered through layers of protection. His face was covered with a beauty mask, and the old radio beside him was playing dance music from the 19th century on Earth. "Grandpa Howard. Grandpa Howard. You have business." The alien child ran over from afar and kept waving his arms, shouting from dozens of meters away. "What business? You're disturbing my rest again." Howard pouted unhappily and removed the mask. When he saw two space warships flying in the sky, he quickly stood up. One is a space hunter warship that was repaired before, and the other is a space warship from an extraterrestrial civilization. Howard murmured and took a few steps forward. The two space warships stopped in the open space in front of the building one after another, raising bursts of yellow dust. The cabin of the Star-Lord was the first to open. Quill came down from inside and smiled at Howard. "Sir, I haven't seen you for a few years. You still look strong." "Why? Little Star-Lord, are you here to introduce me to business?" Howard blinked. "No." Quill shook his head. He gestured to the eagle. "You have a few old friends who came to the Milky Way Alliance to look for you. I brought them over." "Old friends?" Howard looked at Quill, puzzled. Then, his gaze landed on the eagle. The cabin door opened, and a silver-haired young man walked out just like that. You are." The moment Howard saw the silver-haired young man, he was completely stunned. His old body trembled slightly, and his mouth moved, but no sound came out. The young man's face was handsome as if it was carved by a knife. His silver hair draped over his shoulders, and his tall body had a golden ratio. His aura was always indifferent and extremely oppressive, just like the invincible Major General hero from decades ago. If only life was like the first time we met. The young man in front of him was almost exactly the same as the young man from back then. Howard stared blankly. If it weren't for the alien child shaking his arm, he would have thought that this was all a dream. "What's wrong? Have you forgotten about me?" Kale came forward and looked at his old friend who was 30 or 40 years older than back then. He said softly, "Long time no see, Howard, I'm here to fulfill the appointment." This appointment was half a century late, and there were still hundreds of millions of light-years away. Chapter 4:10. Everything had happened too suddenly. Rather than saying that it was a surprise, it was more of a shock. The outer space of Marvel's human world was too vast and boundless. The distance between Earth and the Milky Way Alliance was more than hundreds of millions of light-years. Finding a person was undoubtedly harder than finding a needle in a haystack. Howard and his group set off from Earth and wandered in space for many years. They had repeatedly doubted whether they could find Kale for countless days and nights. In the end, they did not even have any hope of returning to their hometown on Earth. When all hope was gradually shattered, Howard resigned himself to his fate and lived on the deserted Pico star. When his body was getting old, Kale appeared in front of him without warning. Howard couldn't help but take a few steps forward and look directly at Kale. He asked in a trembling voice, "Master, is it really you? I'm not dreaming, am I? Old gentleman, it's not easy to find you." Kale smiled in relief. Howard also smiled happily. The corners of his eyes were slightly moist. He stretched out his withered left hand and placed it on Kale's strong shoulder. "This sentence should be said by us. It's really not easy to find you, Quill, by Bo," and the others looked on silently. Kale and Howard only had a few words of emotion, but it contained difficulties and hardships that ordinary people could not understand. When Kale was seriously ill and left Earth, he narrowly escaped death in the starry sky before he regained his lifespan and a new future. Howard, as a mere mortal, had obviously experienced countless hardships before he finally found shelter in the dangerous Milky Way Alliance. "You seem to have aged quite a bit." Kale looked at Howard's hair. It was full of frost. This was because his vitality was close to exhaustion. Howard had mastered the infinite formula to slow down aging. There was no reason for him to fall to this point. "It's a long story." Howard sighed and looked at Kale from head to toe. He was happy for him. "You look the same as before." Young and strong, full of vitality. The nuclear radiation mutation in your body should have been completely cured, right? Yes, I have become a god. Kale blinked calmly. When Howard was stunned, he patted him on the shoulder and gestured behind him. Not only me, there's another person who left Earth for you. Howard looked in the direction of the gesture and saw Tawny standing not far behind Kale at the door of the Eagle battleship, as if he did not have the courage to step forward. At this time, Tony had already removed his combat suit. He was wearing a suit and tie, and his hair was combed straight. He looked like a mature gentleman. Tony took a deep breath and stepped forward. He coughed to conceal his emotions. Other than me, who else would look for an old man like you? You're dressed so formally. It's really not your style. Howard looked at Tawny and suddenly smiled. You too, Dad. Tawny and Howard looked at each other and did not say anything. They actually smiled nervously. Seeing this, Rocket jumped to Quill's shoulder and whispered in her ear. Say, are all people in science and technology so rational and reserved? Do you want me to shoot a few shots into the sky to celebrate? Quill was inexplicably sad. She covered Rocket's mouth with her hand and snorted. Their father and son reunited. You'd better stop. After Howard and Tawny were reunited, Kale looked at the building in front of him and did not sense the presence of other people. He could not help but ask Howard, where are Lucy and Logan? Didn't the three of you leave Earth together? Hearing this, Howard's face turned pale. He walked past Tawny and held Kale's shoulder with both hands. He lowered his head in shame. I'm sorry, Kale. I'm very sorry. What happened to them? Facing Howard's reaction, Kale's face was still calm, but his hands were clenched tightly. The fused energy was slightly unstable and overflowing on the surface of his body. It was as if he was in a dormant state of an active volcano, with the possibility of erupting at any time. Despite the risk of being burned by the fused energy, Howard still did not let go of Kale's shoulder. It was as if he wanted to be forgiven. Godfather. Tawny called out uneasily. When Quill and the others saw this, they did not dare to intervene. They could only watch in bewilderment. The alien child, on the other hand, was shocked. He subconsciously retreated until he reached where Gola was. He took a deep breath and secretly looked at Kyle. That person is so scary. I almost couldn't breathe just now. Lorna walked to Kale's side and gently stroked his back with her palm. She softly said, Boss, calm down. Kale was in a daze for a moment before he nodded and said to Howard, Sorry, I lost my composure. I'm the one who should apologize. It's my powerlessness. I couldn't protect Lucy and save Logan. Howard's body kept trembling as if he was recalling bad memories. His eyes were filled with fear, timidity, anger, sadness, and helplessness. Are they dead? Who did it? Kale narrowed his eyes. There was a cold murderous intent brewing in his body. I don't know. Maybe they're dead, maybe they're still alive. Howard raised his head and looked around at everyone. He waved his hand toward the building and said hoarsely, Let's go in first. I'll tell you everything. Kale did not speak or do anything. Rocket winked at Quill and jumped onto the Treyant. He tried to smooth things over. My Groot is thirsty. He wants to go in and drink water. Yeah, we're all acquaintances. Let's go in and have a chat. Quill received the hint and hurriedly agreed to smooth things over. With Rocket and Quill easing the atmosphere, Kale and the others followed Howard into the building and sat down in the large living room on the second floor. Back then, Lucy, Logan, and I, because you hadn't returned to Earth for a long time, we had the idea of going out into space to look for you. Howard did not procrastinate and directly described what happened when the three of them formed an interstellar group and went out to Earth. Kale listened carefully. Howard continued. Along the way, we encountered many difficulties. But with Logan as a strong bodyguard and some of my advanced technological weapons, we managed to get through the difficulties without any mishaps. Kale secretly nodded. After Logan's body was implanted with adamantium, his combat power was top-notch. 5 years after leaving Earth, we arrived at the Milky Way Alliance. We were amazed by the civilization here. It was a difficult but beautiful time. We wanted to settle down here temporarily and use the rich information network of the Milky Way Alliance to look for your whereabouts. When Howard said this, there was a hint of a smile on his face. However, the smile disappeared very quickly. We became interstellar hunters and took on missions from some civilizations. While earning money, we also tried to find out more about you. But that was the beginning of all misfortune. Kale quietly clenched his fist. Beside him, Lorna placed her hands on his fist to comfort him. 5 years ago, we received an intermediary mission that required us to go to a planet and build a palace-like building in the style of Earth. Howard's face was very ugly. He looked at Kale and gritted his teeth. There, we met a man. He was the master of that planet. His name was Igo. He was from the deity race. Chapter 411. Deity Race? In the hall on the second floor, which was full of people, everyone was stunned when they heard Howard's words. Deity Race. Obviously, everyone knew this, but it was precisely because they had heard of it that they felt even more incredulous. After all, the deity race was an ancient race that only existed in legends. It was rumored that the deity race had already been born in the early universe long before many civilizations and forces had risen, and various alien races were still in the Enlightenment stage. Each of them had the power of a star and a strong vitality of millions of years. But tens of thousands of years ago, the deity race had faded away, and few people had seen them again. Some people even judged that the deity race had long been extinct in the universe. No one noticed that after Howard said the name Igo, Star-Lord Quill fell into silence. No one knew what he was thinking. Old Mr. Howard, are you sure you met the deity race? That's a legendary ancient organism. Green Peak asked in surprise. It can't be wrong. Howard nodded and said firmly, this is what Igo said himself. Later, I did some research and completely confirmed his identity. He is the only deity race member left in the universe. Howard, what happened? Kale narrowed his eyes. The information he knew about the deity race was no less than that of the people present. Howard said slowly, after the three of us took the intermediary mission, we drove the spaceship away from the central area of the Milky Way Alliance and arrived at a life planet covered in green plants and abundant resources. As the master of the planet, Igo received us with great hospitality and told us a love story. Love story? Rocket blinked. Yes, a love story. A story about a deity race man and a human woman falling in love. When Howard said this, Quill suddenly trembled slightly and held his head with both hands, causing Gola, who was sitting next to him, to cast a puzzled look. Lorna covered her mouth with her hand and asked in surprise, could it be that the deity race man named Igo has been to Earth? Yes. Howard nodded and said, in the 19th century, not only did Igo go to Earth, he also lived there as a human for a short period of time. He fell in love with a woman named Meredith and gave birth to a baby boy. This is impossible. Quill raised his head abruptly. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Howard. He repeated, this is impossible. How could this be? The others looked at Quill in surprise. They didn't know what had triggered Quill to make him show such a big reaction. Sit tight, Quill. Kale looked up and pressed down with his left hand. Quill, who had wanted to charge at Howard, was pulled back to his original position by an invisible force. Tawny came to Howard's side cautiously, afraid that the agitated Quill would hurt his father. Howard's face was calm as he looked at Quill and said, "Child, this is the truth. Quill gritted his teeth and didn't speak. Quill, why are you having such a big reaction? You aren't the hybrid of the deity race and human, are you? Then you should have an extra pair of wings. Wait, does the deity race have wings? Rocket and Drax were joking as they laughed heartily. However, halfway through their laughter, they noticed that everyone else was silent and they suddenly stopped laughing. In the hall on the second floor, the atmosphere was strange and awkward for a while. It can't be true, right? Rocket looked at Quill's ugly face and opened his mouth exaggeratedly. Yes. Howard calmly stated, the human baby boy who inherited the bloodline of the deity race, his name is Peter Quill, the Star-Lord in front of you. When the truth was announced, the others were shocked. Quill clenched his fists and shook his head fiercely. My father is a human from Earth. He disappeared when I was a child. It is impossible for him to be from the deity race. Then have you ever thought about why you were brought to the Galaxy Alliance by the interstellar hunters? Also, is your body different from other ordinary humans? Howard casually pointed out 2 points and said lightly, in fact, when I repaired your starship last time, I had already taken your blood for research and confirmed that you and Igo were father and son. Believe it or not, you can contact the interstellar hunter who brought you to the Galaxy Alliance and get verification from him. After Howard finished speaking, Quill had already believed most of it in his heart, but he was unwilling to admit this fact and said coldly, I will verify it. Kale had an indifferent expression as if he had already known, and said coldly, Howard, you continue, what did Igo of the deity race do to you later? Howard sneered and said, Igo said that he had an urgent matter and had to leave Earth. When he returned again, Meredith had already passed away due to a tumor. In order to commemorate his wife, Igo wanted the three of us to build an Earth-style building on his planet. In that case, that Igo still had some human feelings, Bo commented, and the others nodded in secret approval. The deity race, who had super-strong abilities and a lifespan of millions, mourned the memory of an Earth woman. This was not at all inferior to the absolute love of a god in a movie. Human feelings? Howard sneered and his expression turned ugly. He said resentfully, at first, we thought so too. Thus, we agreed to Igo's request and temporarily stayed on that planet to prepare for the design and construction. It was also because of this that we inadvertently discovered Igo's secret. What secret? Kale asked the question on everyone's mind. Howard took a deep breath and said, that life-bearing planet that seemed to be rich in resources, under the blooming flowers and green plants, was full of skeletons of all kinds of creatures. It turned out that as a member of the deity race, Igo's planet was his body and needed a large amount of resources and nutrients to support it. Thus, he constantly lured creatures to his planet and used their bodies and the materials on the alien ship as fertilizer to cultivate the planet. What? Hearing this, everyone present gasped. By the time we found out, it was already too late. Howard said bitterly, Igo could perceive what was happening on the entire planet. When we wanted to pilot the ship to escape, we discovered that it had already been damaged. With no other choice, we launched a battle with Igo. Naturally, we weren't a match for the deity race. In the end, Logan and Lucy fought for a chance for me to escape. I was able to pilot a dilapidated ship and escape. After losing Logan and Lucy, as well as the original ship, and without the materials for the infinite formula, I quickly entered the stage of aging. In the past 5 years, I threw myself into research every day and night to find a way to kill the deity race. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the face to explain myself to you. This is everything you wanted to know. After Howard finished speaking, he gazed at Kale with a sorrowful expression and waited for his response. Understood. Chapter 4:12. What's wrong? Looking at everyone's shocked expression, Kale's pair of golden eyes did not reveal any emotion. He said coldly, Igo attacked my people, so I'm going to take revenge now. There's nothing strange about this, right? This. Everyone was speechless. Indeed, this logic couldn't be more normal and reasonable. It's just that, the other party wasn't some random cat or dog that could be killed. That was the legendary deity clan. I'll go back to the space shuttle first. Star-Lord Quill's eyelids twitched violently, and he couldn't sit still in the hall. Although Quill still didn't fully believe that his father was Igo of the deity clan and had done so many heartless bad things, Kale was obviously ready to take action against Igo. If this dragged on, Igo would no longer exist. Quill thought of this, got up without saying a word, walked out of the hall, and rushed downstairs to the space shuttle. He wanted to contact the interstellar hunter who brought him to the Milky Way Alliance as a child, Yondu, and ask Yondu about the inside story and the truth. No one stopped Quill's departure, as if they didn't see it. Their thoughts were still sluggish about Kale's revenge. Patriarch, I know you want to take revenge for Logan and Lucy, and so do I. Howard was the first to break the silence. He looked at Kale solemnly, afraid that he would rush to his death on impulse. He said in a deep voice, but that man is from the deity clan, at the top of the Milky Way's combat power pyramid, a high-dimensional life with the power of a star. It's far from being as easy to deal with as the Hydra soldiers on Earth. Kale was unmoved. He stood indifferently in the middle of the hall, as if he didn't hear Howard's persuasion. His whole body was filled with cold-killing intent and oppression. Tawny, advise your godfather not to act rashly. Howard patted Tawny's hand, and Tawny suddenly showed an innocent expression. Howard took a deep breath and continued to persuade Kale, Patriarch, you must know. In the vast Milky Way Alliance, for example, the Carey Empire, even their ordinary people had the combat power of super soldiers. What's more, the deity race is superior to the Kree people in every aspect. The Kree are very strong. Kale didn't say anything, but the expressions on the others' faces became very interesting. Howard looked at them in surprise and asked, "What's wrong? Did I say something wrong?" He looked at his son with a questioning gaze. The corner of Tawny's mouth rose confidently as he smiled. "Father, you don't know, right? Godfather is very strong now. He was ridiculously strong. The so-called Kree people can't be compared to them." When Howard heard this, he looked at Kale in bewilderment. Indeed, the Patriarch's aura was different from before. Moreover, the Patriarch had said that he had become a god. Becoming a god, what kind of concept was that? Mr. Howard. Green Peak, who was a slave, smiled. He knew that this was a great opportunity to bootlick. He couldn't help but compliment, "You don't know. Not long ago, Master Kale fought the Carey Empire's interstellar fleet alone. In the end, he broke into the supreme palace of planet Carey alone and killed the Carey Empire's controller, Ronan." Killed Ronan? Howard was shocked. Bo also nodded and said emotionally, "Not only that. In order to save me, Mr. Kale broke the New Star Army's battleship defense net with one kick. But now, the New Star Empire treats Mr. Kale as the highest VIP and needs the New Star leader to personally receive him. Broke the New Star Army's defense net with one kick? And the New Star leader to personally receive him? The exaggerated battle record made Howard a little confused. He looked at Lorna, who was a normal human woman, as if he was asking for confirmation. Lorna's face was full of smiles, as if the object of everyone's praise was her. She looked gently at Kale and said softly, "Yes, Uncle Howard. Boss even took back the Carey Empire's divine artifact as his spoils of war. Is this true, family head?" Howard's entire body began to tremble. He looked at Kale with incomparable expectation, wanting to hear him admit it personally. Kale said indifferently, "Howard, you can't be thinking that I'm still stuck on the path of evolution after so long, right? This is really great." Howard suddenly stood up. His withered hands grabbed Kale's hand tightly. He changed his previous cautious compromise and gnashed his teeth as he said hoarsely, "Family head, you must avenge Lucy and Logan. You don't need to say it. I'll make him pay 100-fold." Cale narrowed his eyes and put his hand on Howard's shoulder. He seemed to have sensed something and said inexplicably, "Actually, I don't think that Lucy and Logan are dead." "What do you mean?" Not only the others, but even Howard, as the person involved, looked at Cale with doubts. "I won't hide it from you. My body had fused with the space gem for a period of time. After absorbing the energy overflowing from the space gem, it fused with the fire divine power in my body to form a brand new strange energy." Cale snapped his fingers lightly. Dazzling light arcs leaped out of his fingertips, flashing and glowing with terrifying power. "How is this possible? Even Thanos has to indirectly control the power of the gem by forging a divine artifact." Gola looked at Cale in disbelief, as if he had seen a monster's horrified expression. "This is the truth. Through this fused energy, I can increase my body's superpower and become a double star state. In outer space, I can reach the speed of light and even jump out of the original dimensional space to ignore distance." Cale closed his eyes, and a white light flashed through his eyes. He gazed at Howard and said, "Howard, when I touched you just now, I seem to have sensed the weak existence of Lucy and Logan through you." Howard couldn't help but say excitedly, "So you're saying that Lucy and Logan might still be alive, or they might be imprisoned somewhere on the planet by Igo?" "That's very possible. But regarding this, I'll have to ask Igo in detail." Cale stroked his chin and thought for a while. He said in a deep voice, "Howard, you've been hiding here for the past few years and have conducted in-depth research on the deity race. Have you discovered anything? For example, their weaknesses and killing methods?" "Yes." Howard nodded straightforwardly and said coldly, "I've had contact with Igo before. In addition, I've collected information in the starry skies these past few years and obtained Quill's blood. I've made a major discovery." "Tell me about it." Cale nodded. After obtaining the energy of the space gem, he wasn't conceited enough to be invincible in the starry skies. Moreover, the enemy he was facing was the only remaining deity race in the universe. Howard sat back in his seat and said solemnly, "The first batch of deity race didn't rely on reproduction to be born. Instead, they were formed from the transformation of the vital planet into self-consciousness. Although they have an almost infinite lifespan, they also need a lot of resources to maintain it. Otherwise, they will also reach the end of extinction. This is the reason why the deity race continued to die after the rise of many civilizations and forces. They were on the verge of extinction. The deity race is the vital planet." Cale nodded. This was similar to his impression. Howard continued, "Igo not only robbed other creatures and planets of their vitality, but also expanded his territory. He also created an incarnation that could leave the planet and mate with women of other races. He wanted to give birth to a brand new deity race individual. The existence of Star-Lord Quill is the evidence." Rocket shivered all over and complained, "I want to ask how it feels to be F***ked by a planet." Chapter 413. Destroyed by a planet? Everyone on the second floor couldn't help but sweat profusely when they heard this. Probably only Rocket, who had a jumpy mind, would think of such an insignificant point at this moment. If Quill was here, he would probably blow up your fluffy head, little brown bear. Drax, who was half naked, felt deeply disgusted. He crossed his arms and shivered. "By the way, where's Star-Lord Quill?" Howard noticed that Quill had left the area of the second-floor hall at some point in time. "If he was here, why would I complain so casually?" Rocket grinned. "Just now, Mr. Cale said that he was going to kill Igo, and that guy left the hall. He probably returned to the space warship and looked for Yondu, the interstellar hunter who raised him, to verify. He looks stubborn and doesn't admit it, but his body is very honest." Before he finished speaking, the building where everyone was suddenly trembled. Then, Star-Lord's space warship, which was parked outside, ignited its engine accompanied by a strong wave of dust. The orange space warship floated in the air and accelerated straight towards the starry sky. He actually left us and left by himself? Rocket's face froze. Galmola shook her head, her dark red hair swaying like a rattle drum. She, who had always disliked Quill, actually spoke up for him at this time. The interstellar signal on this planet is not very good. He may have gone to a nearby planet for video communication. That's more like it. Rocket snorted. Howard's face turned solemn. Wait, we shouldn't let Star-Lord leave alone now. If Igo finds him, it'll be bad. That Igo of the deity race is trying to find an alien woman to cultivate his descendants. Is he trying to revive the prosperity of the deity race in the past? Drax the Destroyer was slightly surprised. Now, their destroyer race had been slaughtered by Luonan. They were also a race on the verge of starry sky. No. That man only pays attention to his own great cause of expansion. How could he let the collective interests of his race take precedence over himself? Howard shook his head. The deity race can control the power in their bodies and plant their own seeds on other planets. The seeds will lurk like tumor cells, waiting for the day to achieve their goal of annexing the starry sky. Lorna quickly realized what was going on and asked in surprise, so, there are seeds planted by him on Earth too? Howard nodded. That's not all. I'm afraid that Igo has planted his seeds on thousands of life planets. But in the past decade or so, he suddenly stopped and began to focus on searching for traces of Quill. Such a guy would never be delayed by a father-son relationship. I'm afraid that Star-Lord Quill has something he needs to awaken the germination of the seed. Kale said coldly. That's right, I think so too. Howard nodded and said, I'm guessing that Igor can't swallow a planet with his own divine power, so he nurtured Quill to borrow the divine power from him to achieve his ultimate goal. As long as we kill Igo before he absorbs Quill's divine power, we'll be done, right? Kyle looked at Howard seriously. It was obvious that he couldn't wait any longer. Howard nodded in agreement and said slowly, fortunately, Quill hasn't awakened his divine power yet, so Igo hasn't found him yet. This might be the interstellar hunter named Yondu, hiding and protecting Quill in the dark. That's simple. We'll knock Quill out and trap him in the basement of this building. Rocket laughed and took out an instrument from his trouser pocket and quickly operated it. Out of professional habit, I installed a tracker on Quill's space warship. Now let me see where he went. After Rocket finished operating, he looked at the cursor on the screen and smiled. Quill piloted the space warship and indeed ran to the next planet. You can rest assured. Wait, the space warship suddenly moved. Let me see. Howard stretched out his hand and Rocket decisively handed over the tracker. After Howard received the tracker, he took out the black-rimmed glasses from his jacket pocket and put them on before looking at the instrument screen. He's leaving in the opposite direction of our planet. Howard was flabbergasted when the cursor on the screen flickered and disappeared without a trace. He said with a solemn expression, he activated a space jump and arrived at another distant galaxy. This time, he really abandoned you. Drax laughed and looked at Rocket and Galmola, who had ugly expressions. Give me the tracker, I'll chase him back. Kale suddenly had a bad premonition. He stood up from his seat without hesitation and took the tracker from Howard. After thinking for a while, he turned to Galmola and said, after we settle the matter with the deity race, I'll go with you to get the soul gem. Galmola nodded and replied, no problem. Seeing that Kale was about to leave, Howard said anxiously, Patriarch, you only know the general direction he left in. How are you going to chase him with a space warship? Who said I'm going to chase him with a space warship? The corners of Kale's mouth curled up. Holding the tracker, dazzling energy began to flow on the surface of his body. Suddenly, he took off in the hall and his body turned into a dazzling stream of light. He smashed through the glass on the balcony on the second floor, and his flying speed increased dramatically as he chased after his target. "This is too illogical," Howard muttered in a low voice as he stared blankly at Kyle's disappearing figure. "Father, you'll get used to it." Tawny touched his mustache. Kale broke through the atmosphere at the speed of light and entered the vast outer space. He flew at the speed of light at full power and chased in the direction where the signal disappeared. Countless dim and bright starlight blurred and passed by on both sides. "Star-Lord, what are you trying to do?" Kale narrowed his eyes and looked at the tracker while passing through the universe area at an extremely fast speed. 5 minutes ago. Not far from Pico Star, the neighboring star, Tatata Star. Quill landed the space warship next to a quiet forest lake and saw that the interstellar signal had returned to a green light. After taking a few deep breaths to calm down, he began to make an interstellar contact dialing in the pilot's seat. A few seconds later, on the holographic projection of the video communication, a blue-skinned, bald, middle-aged alien with a medal inlaid on his forehead appeared. With a straight face, he scolded Quill. "Brat, you're finally willing to take the initiative to contact me? Where are you now? Are you still alive?" "Of course I'm still alive." Although Quill was scolded, his heart was warm, knowing that Yondu's words were sharp but his heart was soft. "Come back if you're still alive. Do you still want to continue to show off outside? By the way, you still have the universe orb on you, bring it back to me, I heard it's very valuable." Yondu snorted. "Yondu?" Quill suddenly shouted and asked straightforwardly, "Was it my father who asked you to bring me to the Milky Way when I was a child?" Yondu's expression changed slightly, and he said, "Why do you ask this?" "My father." Quill's voice trembled slightly, and he said, "Is his name Igo?" "It seems that you already know." Yondu gasped lightly, looked at Quill, and simply admitted, "Yes." "But there is a reason for all of this." Yondu was only halfway through his words when the video suddenly froze, and the connection was forcibly interrupted, as if the signal had been strongly interfered with. "Yondu, Yondu?" Quill patted the equipment instrument, and while he was wondering, in front of the windshield of the space warship, the lake waves began to churn outward from the center. A small silver star shuttle slowly docked on the lake, and on top of the star shuttle, a middle-aged man with a beard stood on it leisurely, using the star shuttle to travel through the universe as a skateboard. Chapter 4:14. The middle-aged man stood on the silver star shuttle that looked like a skateboard. His hair and beard had been dyed white by the passage of time. Obviously, he was already a certain age and was entering the old age stage of life. The door of Star-Lord's space warship opened, and Quill, who was fully armed and wearing an oxygen helmet, jumped out of the space warship's cockpit with 2 guns in his hands. He looked at the middle-aged man who parked the star shuttle on the lake with vigilance and asked coldly, "Who are you?" "Quill, after so many years, I finally found you." The middle-aged man sighed and turned around. His eyes were as bright as the starry sky as he stared at Quill affectionately. Their eyes met, and Quill's heart felt like it was hit. His hand holding the gun trembled violently as he said in disbelief, "You are..." The middle-aged man nodded gently and smiled. "Yes. I am your father, Igo." "How could it be?" Quill murmured and subconsciously put down his gun. Igo saw this and a kind smile appeared on his face. "I've let you suffer, my child." Quill was stunned for a moment before his eyes sharpened. He growled like a wounded beast, "Where have you been all these years? Do you know that when Mother was critically ill, she was still calling your name when she held my hand? I was forced to leave." Igo sighed. Quill took a deep breath and calmed down. He looked at Igo and said in a deep voice, "I have a lot of questions to ask you about my mother and me." "No problem, but this is not a good place for family reunion." Igo looked around at the forest wilderness, pointed to the star shuttle below him, and suggested, "I'll take you to my territory planet." There, I can tell you everything you want to know. Quill had too many unanswered questions about his father's strange disappearance when he was young. His mother suddenly became seriously ill, and he was taken away from Earth by aliens. Now that he met Igo, who had been confirmed as his biological father, he naturally had no reason to refuse. Quill looked at the star shuttle and then at the space warship. He hesitated and said, "I can, but I still have some friends on nearby planets." Igo smiled. "It's okay, come with me. After a day, you can come back and arrange for your friends. Or at that time, you can invite them to go to our planet's territory." "All right then." Quill hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. Very quickly, EGE's star shuttle took the space warship that Quill was piloting. They performed a space jump one after another and headed towards a galaxy outside of the Milky Way Alliance. At this time, Kale was still flying in outer space. Since he did not know his specific location, and the tracker only worked in the same galaxy, he could only move in the direction where the signal disappeared. Flying at superluminal speed was already far beyond the space warships and spaceships with the most advanced technology. Sometimes, even space warships would need to fly for a few months, but now, Kale had completed it in less than 10 minutes. After traversing countless galaxies, the tracker's green light finally flashed, and a warship-shaped cursor appeared on the screen. Kale looked at the screen as he flew and muttered to himself, "The space warship has stopped. Has it arrived at a planet? The location is not far ahead." Following the guidance of the cursor, Kale began to slow down. Soon, he stopped in outer space outside the destination planet. His body was still shining with a scorching light, but when he saw the scene of the planet in front of him, Kale's scalp went numb and he sucked in a breath of cold air. Lying in front of him was a planet no smaller than Earth. It was green and blue with exuberant vitality, but its overall shape was very much like the head of a middle-aged man. The mountains and rivers also made the facial features, such as the facial features, mouth, and nose, look very lifelike. This is Sky God. I'm still one step too late. What a coincidence, that guy just happened to find Quill. Kale narrowed his eyes, thought for a moment, and activated the stealth skill that he had not used for a long time. The dark fog shrouded his overflowing body, and then he landed on the planet at the speed of a normal space warship. Passing through the atmosphere, Kale's flight speed decreased by another level. He was like a huge eagle, soaring in the sky and looking down. The planet was full of green mountains and clear waters, and hundreds of flowers were blooming. At a glance, it was a beautiful scene full of vitality. But once he thought of the wreckage of countless creatures buried under this beautiful scene, and perhaps the corpses of Lucy and Logan, Kale's eyes were as cold as ice. Hopefully, Lucy and Logan are still alive. Otherwise, who cares about the Sky God race, not to mention the entire life planet, even this galaxy will be burned by Kale's anger. According to the tracker prompt, Kale found the space warship where Star-Lord was staying in front of a palace garden on the planet. Kale maintained stealth and approached the side of the palace. His ears suddenly moved, and with his ultra-sensitive hearing, he heard the conversation between Quill and Igo, as well as the voice of a maid. "Master Igo, Master Quill, tea is here. Okay, you can go down. Without my order, don't disturb our father and son reunion." "Yes." After the conversation ended, with the sound of light footsteps, a snail woman wearing a maid's skirt with 2 tentacles on her head walked out. She held a shower and scissors in her hand and came to the garden outside the palace and began to take care of the flowers and plants. Kale, hiding in the corner of the palace, looked at the snail maid, and the tall figure disappeared into the shadows again. The snail maid hummed a tune and watered the flowers. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the flowers, and an orange kitten lazily poked its head out. "Oh, my God! Little guy, where did you come from? I've never seen you before." The snail maid was surprised at first, then she put her finger in front of her lips, glanced at the palace building behind her, and whispered anxiously, "Don't make a sound, if Master hears it, you will be in danger." The little orange kitten's eyes widened and he tilted his head doubtfully. The snail maid's heart melted. She put down the shower, squatted down, and reached out to the orange kitten. "Good boy." Before the snail maid's hand fell on the fur, the little orange kitten suddenly opened his mouth exaggeratedly and swallowed the snail maid into his mouth, and then ran out of the garden without looking back. A few kilometers away from the garden palace. When the little orange kitten spat the snail maid on the grass, the snail maid coughed and opened her eyes, and Kale stood in front of her and looked down at her. The snail maid hugged her chest in fright and shrank into a ball. "Who are you? Outsider? You're the maid that Howard was talking about, right? 5 years ago, you helped him escape from this planet." Kale said calmly. If it wasn't for this reason, he would have used venom to forcibly extract the maid's memory. The snail maid heard the name Howard and immediately let out a sigh of relief, and asked, "Are you his acquaintance?" "That's not important. Now, you have to answer my question first." Kale clenched his fists and said, "Are Lucy and Logan still alive?" Chapter 4:15. Planet Igo, on the other side of the garden palace. Compared to the plains that were full of flowers and plants, this was a completely different scene. The ground was barren, and the dark brown surface was full of dry cracks. There were only dead trees scattered here and there, and the leafless withered branches were like the hands of an old man reaching for the sky. At the end of the barren land, there was a large active volcano. It was like a giant beast lying on the ground. The heat in the air could be felt from a few kilometers away, and the sky above the volcano was filled with dark clouds. No life would set foot on this land of death, but today was a special exception. "Is this the place?" Kale looked at the active volcano in front of him and glanced at the planet's snail maid, who was fidgeting with her fingers. "Yes, I'm not sure if Ms. Lucy and Mr. Logan are still alive. But 5 years ago, after the battle between Master, Lucy, and Logan, an active volcano suddenly formed here." The snail star maid stepped on the edge of the grassland and looked at the dark brown dry land with fear. Her face was pale as she said in a low voice, she said with a pale face, "After Master returned to the palace, he strictly forbade any creatures from coming close to this area. If he found out, he would feed them to this planet as fertilizer. There must be a reason for this." Kale narrowed his eyes. After thinking for a while, he took out a creature card and summoned it. A mist-like creature appeared in the air and circled around Kale. It said respectfully, "Pride obeys your orders, Master. Pride, look after her until I come back." Kale pointed at the planet's snail maid. "Yes, Master." Pride replied coldly and wrapped around the planet's snail maid. The planet's snail maid waved her hands in panic, but she couldn't touch Pride's spirit body, let alone drive it away. "Don't worry, as long as you don't try to run away, it won't hurt you. Instead, it will protect you." After Kale finished giving his instructions, he took a step forward. As his body circulated the merged energy, he immediately flew toward the volcano's crater. The active volcano was at least 1,000 meters above sea level, and the diameter of the crater was nearly 300 meters. Close to the edge of the crater, the temperature in the air was already scorching hot. Ordinary creatures couldn't even get close to it. However, no matter how high the temperature was, it did not make much of a difference to Kale. His divine power was of the fire element, and with the energy he absorbed from the space gem, he could travel freely even in the harsh environment of outer space. Kale landed on the edge of the crater and looked down at the belly of the mountain, which was dozens of meters deep. Inside the crater, there was hot lava bubbling and smoking. Some pebbles were kicked down by his shoes and were immediately melted into wisps of smoke by the lava. There are no signs of life within the range of the volcano. Vice activated his sonar scan and said, "Master. Could it be that this active volcano was created when Lucy and Logan fought against Igo?" Kale shook his head gently and judged, let's not talk about whether Lucy and Logan have the ability to do so. Igo, who is the body of a planet, can repair the terrain at will. This active volcano was obviously created by him. Then why is he doing this? Wei Si was a little surprised, like a human. To cover up the things that exist here. Let's go down and take a look. Kale's eyes were bright. Without any hesitation, he circulated the merged energy again. The surface of his body seemed to be propped up with a protective shield, and just like that, he jumped into the lava of the crater. Splash! The high-temperature lava splashed. Kale, who had his own light source, seemed to be diving deep into the water, sinking deeper and deeper into the crater of the volcano. After descending for about a kilometer, which was the bottom of the crater, Kale felt that the temperature of the lava flowing around him began to drop slowly. In the end, it became as cold as water, and the distance that he could see was continuously extending. That's... Kyle's eyes suddenly widened. Under the lava of the volcano, he saw a small mountain floating up and down. The mountain wasn't made of rock, but was made of almost translucent blue ice. Under the active volcano, there was actually an iceberg hidden. On the grassland outside the volcano. The star snail maid was sitting on the grassland. Her body was stiff, and she did not dare to move. Pride was sitting on her neck. After Kale left, the two did not communicate at all. The star snail maid carefully turned around and looked at Pride again. That long black mist-like spirit body, she asked weakly, can you talk? A snail-like lowly creature like you is not worthy to talk to me. Pride sneered coldly and snorted. I am not a snail. The star snail maid was speechless. This spirit body guarding her was indeed as arrogant as its name suggested. Only Master has the right to talk to me. Pride said coldly. Aren't you talking to me right now? The star snail maid was speechless. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but suddenly, the ground started to shake violently. The dark clouds in the sky were shattered inch by inch. It was as if the entire planet had started to shake. The change came quickly, and it also stopped quickly. In just 3 seconds, everything returned to normal. Pride said to himself, just now, I could clearly feel that a powerful energy came from the other side of the planet. Yes, Master. The star snail maid's face was pale, and she confirmed, his plan worked. The second sky god is finally going to awaken. The second sky god? While Pride was confused, the ground shook slightly again. This time, the source of the tremor came from the crater of the volcano. Red lava gushed out from the crater of the volcano, and then an iceberg rose to the sky. It was not until the iceberg completely separated from the belly of the volcano that a bit of starry light appeared at the bottom of the iceberg. It was Kale who was running the merged energy. He carried a small iceberg that weighed a few thousand tons and flew out of the crater of the volcano, towards the grassland where the star snail maid was. Boom! Kale slowed down and landed on the grassland. When he put the iceberg on his shoulder on the grassland, the ground around him shook. Then, with the iceberg as the center, a bone-chilling cold spread out and covered the area within a few hundred meters with a thin layer of frost. It's so cold. The star snail maid trembled and took a few steps back from the iceberg. When she saw the blue body of the iceberg, she was suddenly stunned. There was a woman inside the iceberg. Kyle placed his palm on the iceberg and felt the coldness. His heart was burning with joy. He looked up at the iceberg in a daze, at the familiar figure sealed in ice. She had blonde hair that reached her waist, snow-white skin, delicate and flawless facial features, and a faint smile on her face. She was wearing a white outfit, and she looked like an angel. Just like half a century ago. Kale's thoughts drifted away. He rubbed the iceberg and exclaimed, I finally found you, Lucy. Chapter 4:16. When Kale placed his hand on the ice, the smart watch that Vice transformed into shot out a blue X-ray laser to perform a preliminary scan on the ice mountain that was about the size of a 5-story building. Vice soon provided the relevant information. "Master, this ice mountain is not normal. The texture of this iceberg is not ordinary ice, but solid ice that has been frozen for thousands of years. However, such an iceberg should have gradually melted with the passage of time in the high-temperature lava of the volcano, but this iceberg is directly immune to the high-temperature corrosion of the lava. This is a little too strange. Can you detect Lucy's vital signs?" Kale asked. That was what he was most concerned about. "Well," Vice said awkwardly, "the ice is too thick. It blocks the laser from scanning. I can't detect the living thing inside the mountain." At this moment, the snail star maid exclaimed. A cloud of black mist rushed forward and said respectfully to Kale, "Master, maybe I can try." Kale nodded. Pride immediately flew into the air and crashed into the outer layer of the ice mountain. However, its spirit body directly penetrated the ice and swam to the side of Lucy, who was in the middle of the ice mountain. After circling around a few times, Pride returned to Kale. Pride explained, "Master, the woman inside the ice mountain is still alive. It's just that she's in hibernation. Under the instinctive defense mechanism, her body is faintly glowing with extremely cold energy. This entire iceberg should be caused by her body's emergency response." "Ice-type energy?" Kale mumbled to himself and then shook his head with a smile. It seemed like he was not the only one. After leaving Earth, even Lucy had some opportunities to enter the path of evolution. The rich relied on technology while the poor relied on mutation. There was another meaning in this sentence. It meant that anyone could become a superhuman. The Marvel Universe was a world full of miracles and wonders. "Master, do you need me to transform into my transformer form and cut open the iceberg to save Miss Lucy?" Vice suggested when it saw that Pride had stolen its thunder. "Don't. With your transformer mode, don't accidentally hurt Lucy." Kale shook his head decisively. He arrogantly stepped forward and took the opportunity to agree. "That's right. This method is too barbaric." Vice was speechless. It was an intelligent mechanical life form, and its logic was a rational programming system. It was the first time someone had called it barbaric. "All right, all of you step back a little. Let me do it myself." Kale waved his hand and said. Vice immediately turned back into a small robot and stepped back with Pride. They stood together with the snail star made about 10 meters away from the iceberg. Kale took a deep breath and started to channel the fire energy that came from the genes of the Protoss. His body was suddenly surrounded by a faint golden flame. His left hand, which was pressed against the surface of the iceberg, became as hot as iron. Snail Maid, Weiss, Pride, and Fear retreated another 10 meters, but the originally cold and bone-chilling air also began to reverse the trend of the scorching hot summer. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. In the hands of Kyle, who had transformed into the god of fire, the 10,000-year-old ice that could not be shaken by the lava melted at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if a passageway leading to the belly of the iceberg had been opened. With his left hand in front of him, Kale melted the ice and started to move forward. Step by step, he went deep into the iceberg. 10 seconds later. Kale was about 1 meter away from Lucy. Up close, Lucy, who was wearing a white dress, looked like a sleeping beauty sleeping in an ice coffin. Her long eyelashes, golden hair, white skin. Everything was frozen 5 years ago. "It's time to wake up, Lucy," Kyle murmured softly. He controlled the fire energy with his left hand and melted the last meter of the ice barrier. The moment the ice melted, Lucy's body that was suspended in the air fell forward. Kyle restrained the fire energy on his body and held her in his arms with his open hands. He buried his face in her golden hair. The familiar fragrance drifted into his nose. It had been a long time. Kale smiled in relief. He hugged Lucy quietly and smelled her scent. It was as if he was willing to let time stop at this moment and last forever. Lucy's eyelashes trembled. She slowly opened her beautiful blue eyes. She realized that she was being hugged by a tall man. She instinctively wanted to break free, but her resistance stopped in the next moment. "Kale, is that you?" Lucy's voice was trembling. Although she didn't see the other person's face, the strength and gesture of this hug were no different from the person in her memory. "If it's not me, who else could it be?" Kale responded with a chuckle. After receiving confirmation, Lucy hugged him back. Her beautiful eyes were filled with faint tears. She sobbed emotionally, "Kale, the universe is too vast and too dangerous. I'm afraid that I won't be able to return to Earth in this lifetime. I'm even more afraid that I won't be able to see you again. It's okay. I'm here. Everything is okay." Kale gently patted Lucy's back to comfort her. It was rare for him to show such a tender side of his. He had faced too many battles and slaughters, and only in front of his most important lover would he be able to once again feel that precious thing called emotion. The two maintained their hugging position. After a short reunion, Lucy suddenly remembered something. She hurriedly broke free from Kale's arms and exclaimed, "By the way, Kale, how long have I been sleeping in the ice?" Kale blinked and said, "As far as I know, it should be 5 years." 5 years? Lucy was shocked. She covered her surprised little mouth and said anxiously, "Oh no." Logan was taken away by God Igo. It's been so long. I don't know if he's still alive. Kale indeed didn't find any trace of Logan in the ice. He said in a deep voice, "Tell me slowly. 5 years ago, after Howard escaped from this planet, what happened to you and Logan? Also, why were you frozen in the ice and sank into the magma of the volcano?" Lucy took a few deep breaths. After calming down, she answered Kale's doubts one by one. It turned out that when Lucy left Earth, she vaguely felt that there was an energy awakening in her body. In order to avoid worrying Howard and Logan, she didn't tell them about it. Lucy hadn't used this latent ice energy many times. It wasn't until 5 years ago, when she escaped from the God planet and was forced to fight with Igo, who was intercepting her, that the ice energy was fully used. Otherwise, with Logan's strength alone, even Howard wouldn't have had the chance to escape from the God planet. But despite the support of the ice energy, Lucy and Logan were still no match for God Igo. Logan was the first to lose consciousness. In order to avoid falling into Igo's hands, Lucy used the maximum ice energy to freeze herself. Lucy wrinkled her delicate nose, spread out her hands and said, "That's what happened. As for why the iceberg that froze me was put into the magma of the volcano created by Igo, I'm not too sure. Maybe I know." Kale smiled and looked at the blue ability card that was suspended on Lucy's body like a protective talisman. Maybe even Igo didn't expect it. In the world, there was actually a card ability that could passively make one immune to natural disasters, elven protection. Chapter 4:17. When Kale came out of the iceberg, Lucy was already with him, holding his hand intimately. The two of them came to the grassland area where the snail star maid was. "Greetings, mistress." Vice in the mechanical body and arrogance in the black mist spirit body were both very tactful. They came to Lucy one after another and bowed respectfully. Good, good, good. It must be hard to take care of Kale." Lucy smiled and nodded. After greeting Vice and arrogance, she was still as lively as before. She playfully winked at Kale. "It seems that you have taken in a lot of family members again." Kale smiled but didn't say anything. He looked at the snail star maid with a serious face. She seemed to have something to say. "Isn't this little Mantis?" Lucy saw the snail star maid and walked forward. She held her hand and said, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, we might not have found out the truth hidden on this planet. Lucy, it's great that you are okay. Mantis smiled sincerely. Lucy asked Kale, you didn't bully little Mantis, did you? Although she is God Igor's servant, in fact, she is very kind and pure. Back then, she was the one who secretly told us the truth and helped Howard escape. Of course not. Kale answered calmly. This was the truth. It was just that he let the devouring soul beast eat her once. Really? Lucy looked at Mantis's nervous little face and showed a doubtful and cute expression. Mantis quickly shook her head and said anxiously, okay. Miss Lucy, Mr. Kale is very good to me. Now, you must leave this place immediately. What happened? Seeing Mantis's high tension, Kale couldn't help but look at Arrogance, who was outside just now. Master. Arrogance saluted and quickly reported, shortly before you entered the volcanic hinterland, there was a powerful awakening energy, and the aftermath covered this entire life planet. That's the awakening of the second god. Picking up its unfinished words, Mantis said with fear, Master Igor has been secretly searching for his descendants, Star-Lord Quill, who were lost outside the universe for more than 10 years. Now, with his help, Quill has awakened the divine power hidden in his body. Is his plan about to start? Kale had listened to Howard's analysis from beginning to end and he knew what this meant. Mantis nodded. Yes, as long as Master Igor's power in Quill's body, the seeds will be planted on thousands of life planets. And the seeds will quickly take root and germinate, swallowed all the resources on the planet, and... When Lucy heard this, she couldn't help but look at Kyle anxiously. What should we do? It's very simple. Just don't let him have the chance to grow the seeds. The serious situation was imminent, but Kale was still calm. He looked at the sky on the other side of the planet and said with emotion, it's just that I didn't expect that even if I left the Earth, I would still have to fight to maintain the safety of the Earth. This may be the symbol of peace, the fate brought by the title. At this moment, on the other side of the planet, under the surface of the Garden Palace, there is a primitive cave here. The ground is covered with luminous moss, and the roots of the trees are intertwined to form the wall. Although it is a closed underground environment, the air is smooth and fresh, with a faint floral fragrance. Igor, wearing a silver uniform, retracted his hand from Quill's chest. Quill's body glowed with a little starlight and soon returned to normal. Quill, how do you feel? Igor looked at Quill with a smile on his face, and his eyes contained a deep sense of expectation. I feel like I can kill Ronan with one punch. Quill opened his eyes, clenched his fists, and then spread his hands and said, I'm kidding. I feel that my physical attributes have increased several times, and it seems like I can control the things around me at will. As Quill spoke, he waved his hand at the tree roots. As the blue energy radiated, the tree roots that formed part of the cave wall immediately moved rhythmically like living snakes. This is the power of our celestial god race. Igor raised his head arrogantly and opened his hands. He said, we celestial gods are above all living things and races in the universe. You are still not familiar with this awakened power, but when you use it in the future, you can create a planet under your own control. Not to mention a mere Ronin, you can even smash a creature stronger than Ronin into pieces with one punch. Is that so? Quill lowered his head and looked at his palm. It was unknown what he was thinking. Okay, I have to go do something first. You stay here for a while. I have something important to tell you later. Igor was a bit impatient. After waving his hand, his body quickly merged into the tree root wall and disappeared completely. Quill felt very bored. He sat on a chair woven naturally from tree roots and played with his newly awakened celestial god ability. It's a bit interesting. I can control more than just tree roots. I feel like I can freely explore and control any corner of this planet. Quill took a deep breath and began to explore the cave he was in. As soon as his mind penetrated 10 meters into the ground, he was shocked. There was actually a mysterious person even deeper underground. Quill thought for a moment and imitated Igor. As the soil wriggled, his entire body sank into the ground. He fell 10 meters and finally sat down in the lowest level of the cave. Pain, pain, pain. Quill climbed up from the ground and hugged his butt with both hands. He raised his head in pain and looked forward. He saw that in the depths of the cave on the second underground floor, there was actually a human-looking male savage trapped. The male savage's back was tightly pressed against the wall. His limbs and head were tightly wrapped by tree roots. His whole body was as dry as firewood. His black hair and beard were abnormally lush and exuberant. It was obvious that he had been trapped here for some time. His ragged white clothes had turned from white to grayish black. The savage's head was tilted to one side and he remained unconscious. What was even more shocking was that several tree roots had pierced into his heart, as if they were constantly sucking his blood as nourishment. Why do I feel like I've seen him somewhere before? Quill looked at the savage's face. His hair covered most of his face, but the more he looked, the more familiar he felt. Out of curiosity, Quill could not help but move forward. He approached him and reached forward, wanting to push the savage's drooping hair away. The moment Quill's hand touched the hair, the savage suddenly woke up and trembled all over. He opened his mouth and let out an angry growl. Under the strength of his body, the tough tree vines were stretched to the limit. Quill was shocked and hurriedly stepped back. Then he saw the savage instinctively raise his hands. From his clenched fists, 3 sharp and cold steel claws stretched out. You are. Quill's eyes widened. At the same time, he saw the other person's face clearly. It was a file photo that Kale once showed him on the electronic screen. Wolverine Logan. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.